welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Today is Tuesday, May 23rd. It's about 7:30 p.m. We are here in Town Hall at a Planning Zoning Commission public hearing and general meeting. We're in room 206 in Town Hall. And tonight, Darien lacrosse is playing at the semifinals against Wilton, my kids on the team, so I'm missing the game. We'll get right into it. The first item is postponed. Should I read it into the record? Doesn't say open.
No, it's just going to be postponed.
All right, so just skip it totally.
Yep.
Okay. The first item on the agenda is going to be coastal site plan review number 372, flood prevention application number 436, land filling and regrading application number 544, Mitchell and Kerry Ross at 17 Nickerson Lane. Proposal to construct a new 6-bedroom single-family dwelling on a now vacant lot, construction of a new driveway and parking court, patio and terrace areas, and a pool, and perform related site development activities, including the regrading of the property, installation of stormwater management. The project will establish a new connection to the public water and sewer. The 0.9 plus or minus acre subject property is located on the southwest side of Nickerson Lane, approximately 750 feet west of its intersection with Nearwater Lane, and is shown on Assessor's map number 52 as lot number 9 in the R1 zone. This to be continued and be open and continue to May 30th. What do we got, guys?
Yeah, we're going to open the hearing tonight. The applicant did the mailings, but we're going to immediately continue it to next week, not take any testimony tonight. The commission's having a special meeting next week. This will be one of the items on that agenda.
Okay.
And
So-
for the record, and for planning purposes, I will be recusing myself from this one.
Okay.
Thanks, George.
Fantastic. I'm not sure if Jeff Paul's going to be here tonight, just for the record, too. I called him. I didn't hear from him today. Okay. The next item on the agenda is continuation of public hearing regarding proposed amendments to the Darien Zoning Regulations, COZR number 1-2023, site plan application number 310A, special permit application number, is that 324A? I wrote over it.
325A.
324A, flood prevention application number 425A,
Right.
7 Sedgwick Avenue, LLC, 7 Sedgwick Avenue. Proposal to amend section 726, paren 13 of the Darien zoning regulation to increase the maximum floor area of dwelling units in the central business zone from 1,000 square feet to 1,600 square feet. Proposal to amend section 726, note F of the Darien zoning of the zoning regulations to allow a third floor dwelling units as incentive units under the inclusionary housing regulations, and to clarify the residential parking requirements in the central business district, CBD. Proposal to raise the existing bank building on the site and convert and redevelop the property as multifamily residential and perform related site development activities within a regulated area, including the regrading of the property, installation of landscaping, lighting, and stormwater management. The applicant proposes to construct a multifamily apartment building with a total of 22 1- and 2-bedroom apartments on the 2 floors above the parking level, including 4 deed-restricted affordable units. A total of 38 surface level parking spaces will be created under the building. The 0.49 plus minus acre subject property is located at the southwest corner formed by its intersection of Sedgwick Avenue and Old Kings Highway North, and is shown on Assessor's map as not number 71 as lots 15 and 16 in the central business CBD. This full text of the proposed zoning regulation amendments is on file and available in the town clerk's office and the planning zoning office for inspection, and online at www.darienctviewpointcloud.com. Jeremy, Fred, where are we in this one?
Yeah, so
This
the.
third night, fourth night?
Second.
This is
Second night.
actually the second night.
Wow.
You'll recall that the commission opened the hearing on this application on March 28th and presented their application to the commission. Since then, the applicant has addressed many of the commission's concerns that were raised at the first hearing. They did go back before the Architectural Review Board on May 16th. From ARB's letters in your packets, they still do not have a favorable report from the ARB. However, the applicants will discuss the details of that with you tonight. Since the last meeting, they've addressed a number of comments raised in Joe Canis's engineering review, as well as have taken into consideration multiple concerns raised as part of Greg Del Rio's review of Hardesty and Hanover. Just as a reminder to the commission and for the record, the application was referred out to the Darien Legal Traffic Authority. Comments were received on the application on February 9th. It was referred out to the Darien Health Department. Comments were received from them on February 7th. It was also referred out to the Environmental Protection Commission. Comments were received from staff member Rick Talamelli on March 6th, and it was also referred out to Connecticut Deep, and comments were received from that agency on March 6th. So the applicant's representative, Attorney Robert Maslin, is here to present the changes to you this evening and answer any questions you may have.
Fantastic. Mr. Maslin, we got a couple different cover letters from you. One's dated May 18th, one's dated May 15th, one's dated April 11th. There's some questions that it looks like you've answered, maybe you're not answered.
Yeah, I'll go.
Where are we today?
I'll go through all of that.
Great.
So for the record, Attorney Robert Maslin, I represent the applicant, 7 Sedgwick Avenue LLC. With me this evening are, where's Chip? Oh, there it is, Chip Platts, who's seated, I guess in the third or fourth row back there. And on the consultant team, Mark Andre, the architect, Andy Sumalides, professional engineer with Land Tech, and Neil Olinsky, traffic consultant, and don't forget Matt Pop, who's raising his hand in the back. We did submit letters, I believe they're April 11th, and then 3 in May. The one on April 11th addressed a few things and included a revision to our proposed text amendment, which, as you may recall, we went from the maximum apartment size of 2,000 down to 1,600 feet, up from the 1,000 feet that's in the regulations today, and we updated our narrative accordingly, and we recorded that letter and the narrative in the town clerk's office to cover the statutory requirement. On May 15th, we submitted a letter that included several items: flood certification, flood vents evaluation report, a few others, and that was forwarded. And we also addressed some of the issues that I was able to address from either the revised materials or just questions that I was able to answer. At about the same time, the engineers, Andy Sumalides, submitted a separate letter addressed to Jeremy addressing Joe Canis's comments, and I believe Rick Talamelli's comments as well. Much of what was in Joe's were duplicates of what Rick Talamelli had raised. On May, losing track of these dates, May 18th, we submitted updated architectural plans, and in the letter we mentioned that we were removing the rooftop amenities as a result of some questions that came up about building height and the activities and things like that. So we just took all of those amenities off. And the reason you got a letter today is because rather than have the staff take apart the packet of architecturals that we gave you previously and insert the rooftop plan that doesn't show anything but equipment and solar panels, I just reprinted full sets for you for kind of an ease of reference, and I submitted that. It's the same plan, except in my May 18th memo, or letter, I mentioned that we would be submitting a rooftop plan
Right, I saw that.
reflecting the change, and that's all it's in today's packet.
I didn't get any letter today from you. So
Okay,
I'm
it was
not gonna
uploaded,
do it,
and
but-
I have paper copies here. But again, the only change is that one sheet.
Right, I mean, in your letter on the 18th, you said we will provide revised route plan prior to the hearing on May 23rd, so.
Yeah, we did. That's-
Yeah,
provided-
we did receive those in our office today. We have those around here someplace.
All right, we'll move on.
It was just one sheet to
It
change,
was
Yeah,
just
I
that
know.
one sheet.
And
I have a
cover letter
slide
with
of
one
it.
sheet say here, this is attached, or something like
only one sheet changed.
Yep,
that. Okay,
just as a convenience, so that you don't have to go mix and match and everything, I just reprinted the whole set.
thank you.
Okay, so, since we appeared at the first session of the hearing, we finished up with the sanitary sewer question. It took quite a while to get through the sewer commission. Most of that was the result of trying to get updated, complete information, and finally, we got what we needed, and the sewer commission had its own consultants, Arcadis, who's doing a review of the entire town system. They looked at it, and they've concluded that there's sufficient capacity at this location to serve this project. So the sewer issue has now been resolved.
Okay, as a project with how many units?
What we proposed, 22.
Okay. So is it?
No, it was this project, you know,
Understood.
yes.
What about if it turns into 23?
I-
24?
I don't know, I don't know if they did that.
So it doesn't say,
Extensive, but there's-
capacity of X,
There is
it's
sufficient
22?
capacity, and maybe Andy might be able to answer your question a little more from an engineer standpoint.
Okay, so the letter that you are referencing doesn't say anything over 22?
I have to take a look at it, but if you bear with
Okay.
me.
Have that letter in our file?
It's
We do
in,
not have
it's
that.
been uploaded.
It's not,
Yep.
Okay, so we think it's capacity for 22 units. Okay?
Probably more, I'm sure it's more, you know, there's.
But you don't
there's-
know.
I do know that there's sufficient capacity
For
to add this
22.
and then some. You know, it's not one of these where it's just on the line.
Well,
There
I
is-
watched the hearing and it was on the line. Was the hearing on TV? On TV 79?
Yeah, I saw it too.
They said
Probably, yeah.
it was barely
Back in-
22. But that was prior to them
I'm
getting
not-
to
which
22.
meeting did
That's
you-
okay, we can move
Yeah,
on.
okay,
It's
all
fine.
right, okay.
You don't
All right.
know.
So what
So that's
I
fine.
have for you tonight are revised site plans and engineering, which the changes are minor. The landscape plan was tweaked accordingly, and then the architectural plans. And then after the architectural plans, I have slides here on the open issues on the peer reviews. And that is based on the last peer review follow-up letter we received from the staff, but it's issued by Joe Canis. So with that, Andy, you want to? I'll take this. Here, let me do this. Do that so you can see what the next slides are.
Just state your name for the record, please.
Sure. Andy Sumalides, Principal and Professional Engineer with Land Tech out of Westport. Soumeli-DIS. So some of the comments, just pull up.
Sorry about that.
They scored?
No, but my boat's ready. My boat's fixed.
So one of the comments was, one of the biggest comments was the connection of our stormwater detention and infiltration systems into the town system. So existing today, there are 2 catch basins in the parking lot that directly connect to the catch basin out on Old Kings Highway. So instead of, I think, a direct connection of a new pipe into that, we reutilize the existing connection into that pipe. So what you see is a couple manholes at our entrance drive there that tie into that existing 12-inch RCP.
Dude, where's that? Can you just point it out?
Sure. So that's right here, so there's an existing catch basin here.
Okay.
You can see this is the existing pipe and it comes into there, and there's 2 existing catch basins in this parking lot.
Okay.
Drain right into this catch basin. This catch basin goes to here, and then right out into the Wise River.
Okay.
So we're right at the end of the storm shed for
Are
this.
those proposed or do they exist?
Ma'am, we'll ask the questions. You can speak later if you like.
These are existing currently. These are all infrastructure, town drainage system, and then there's some private catch basins that were on the piece of property that existed, a private connection that currently existed to the town system. We now pick up that with a new manhole here and another manhole here. So you have these detention systems, they have overflow into this new manhole that ties into that existing pipe. And I think what you'll hear later is one of those comments is receiving approval from DPW to maintain that existing connection.
Okay.
Another change that we made was in terms of the floor drains within the basement or the parking lot, I should say, not basement, the at-grade parking lot. The floor drains were originally connected to the sewer system. So in a flood event, it would inundate the town sewer system. So we converted that to connect into the storm system. So what we do now is floor drains aren't shown, but the floor drains will connect to what's called an oil water separator still. So it'll treat it, collect all the oils, they'll still get treated, and then tie into the storm and not the sewer. So that was in prevention from, a 100-year event happening. It wouldn't inundate the town sewer system.
Was that based upon the town's request or Joe Canis's request?
Joe Canis mentioned it, and then he also mentioned, and I think he's here, so I'm sure you'll hear from him, was to make the sewer system a watertight system. Water systems, and again, the water system as well, so, the water connection, the water laterals, making sure that's all watertight, and that flood waters, wouldn't inundate it, meaning gasketing joints, making sure all those joints are glued and properly installed. So water's typically always done that way. Sewer isn't, so that's a great comment. So we'll make sure that the sewer will also be, tight joints, tight fitting pipe. Another change on our site plan is, what's talked about was the loading. The loading and where's that happening, right?
Yep.
So the loading, we've added a loading space here off of Old Kings Highway. It's a 10 by 30 space, right off Kings Highway right here. The sidewalk, and actually it works out nice, because the sidewalk that connects is actually off the right of way, so we can connect with the new sidewalk here, come across our driveway. So the sidewalk is off the right of way, which allows for a landing there for multiple purposes. One is for move in, move out, deliveries, and also for maintenance of the stormwater structure. So the oil water separator, a truck can, park here and pull a hose and maintain those underground detention systems and oil water separator off the public right of way. I just want to note, it's still within the public right of way. Here's our property line, but it's off the travel way, right? So it's off the travel way, and it won't impede any traffic.
So it's on town property or the right of way of the town?
Correct. So it's basically on street, off the street, but within the right of way. Because the right of way is a little weird here. We can get into it. The state at one point did a taking, which made this odd shaped, this property at one point did have a more, you know, you can see here, where it comes in here.
No, it
And there
happens
was
all
a
the
taking
time.
at some point with DOT, but it never constructed. So there was a taking there that took a good chunk of the piece of property there. A couple of the other things were in relation to basically the flood management of the property. What are the residents doing when a 100-year event happens? How are they being notified and the such? So we put together a basically draft flood contingency plan, I'd call it. And I think the town already has an alert in place when, you know, natural disasters are to come to town, or potential natural disasters. So there's that already in place. And then furthermore, we have the owner notifying the tenants, right, by way of, in their lease, in the written document that they're signing, that they're culpable for, will be completely notified of, you know, this is in a flood hazard area with the potential risk of flooding.
Okay, so that's gotta run with the land, because this guy can sell it. Whoever builds the building or sells the plans, it's not the owner. It's gotta be somebody different. So we have to make sure that wording's right.
Okay,
I mean, I have no idea who's gonna build the building,
right.
right? I have no idea who's gonna own it a year and a half from now, or
Okay.
3 years from now, or 5 years from now. Most buildings sell.
Sure. So, yeah, I mean, we could draft a document, and Attorney Maslin might be talk better to us, something that goes on the land records that, like you said, runs with the land. That's fine. I think we're open to that. So, we get that. In that document, again,
Just to be clear, that's your
yeah, it's this draft right here. Correct.
flood contingency plan?
Correct.
One, like, half a page?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
I mean, it's a little bit out of order, but you can start to think about it. Maybe they know if the team's winning or not. What's the score? You're gonna notify, I mean, I don't have the letter at my fingertips, but you're gonna notify the tenants, thank you. You're gonna notify the tenants, and you're gonna ask them to move their cars,
Correct.
right? So the last time this thing flooded, and there's pictures all over town about it, it happened overnight, right? So if somebody's sleeping
Mhm.
and it floods 4 feet of water, the fire department's gotta get 22 families out of the building. You have a plan for that?
We personally don't know. So we spoke with the fire marshal, and I think that's also in our letter that we'll revisit this with the fire marshal. They looked at the building components of it. I don't know how much they looked at it from a flooding perspective and what they do now. There must be measures in place currently. There's the residential property across the street. There's the Good Wife Shopping Center. So there must be some
Nobody-
plan in town that,
Yeah.
well, I'm not completely aware of.
Nobody sleeps at the Good Wife Shopping Center,
Okay.
and that did flood. They ruined, the store was shut down for a week. But Jeff Ball, who's a commissioner, he rescued a family last year in a boat, and there was a mother, a daughter, somebody else, and I think an infant.
Mhm.
And he did it by himself with his other fire person that was with him.
Right.
But I don't know if you can do that 22 times. Also, if you went the other way and you said everybody's gonna go up to the roof, and you can get them by ladder off the roof, now the elevator going up to the roof is gone.
Mhm.
And now there's a hatch to get up to the roof because you took everything away, so you can't even go up to the roof. So, so I don't know how, you mean,
Sure.
in your plan, you gotta, I don't need you, Bob, I'm talking to him. Thank you. That's fine, he's a professional. So you have to figure out how to get those people out.
Sure.
You know, Jeff Ball, the fireman, got 4 people out of the house. I don't know how you get 22 families out of a house if it's 4 feet in the water and you can't use the elevator.
No, I understood. I think the answer to that is there's got to be something in place now that the emergency services use.
We don't have any buildings in flood zones that have 22 apartments.
You don't have 22 houses on one street within a flood zone?
With 22 families in the same structure? No, we don't.
In the same street?
No. There's 22 houses, but there's not, they're all
Yeah, but
not
what happens
22 houses in the flood
when,
zone.
22 homes on a street flood? There's got to be a way that the emergency services get there. So I don't know the answer personally, but in our response is we would work with the fire marshal and emergency services to further develop this plan. This is a draft plan. This is a working plan. This is not a final plan. We're gonna continue evolving this plan. These comments are beneficial to get in there, right? So,
So you haven't thought about that yet?
yes, we're gonna sit down with the fire marshal to come up with that plan. He's gotta have a plan now. There's numerous properties, residential properties within the flood zone. I didn't do a whole calculation of how many, but, I don't know how many units are next door.
But it's not in the flood zone.
That's not in the flood zone?
No.
Okay.
And when Goodwife Shopping Center flooded and this property flooded, they didn't have 4 feet of water in their parking lot.
Okay.
I can protect the families in town, Darien.
We'll further draft this plan out.
Okay, good luck.
And if your fire and safety says this is not safe, then it's not gonna get built,
I understood.
right? So
agree
I
with you
think
100%.
it's a fire and safety thing. If we work with them and further develop this plan.
I agree with you 100%.
Right,
The applicants own the property for years now.
right.
Okay. You keep going.
So yeah, you guys obviously seen the draft. I won't go into much more detail, but yeah, in terms of moving vehicles, yeah, they're responsible for moving their vehicles. You know, and so on and so forth, and disconnecting utilities and the such. So there's a plan in place here. Similarly, there's a pre-construction plan as well, you know, during construction, you know, tying down materials, making sure there's limited materials on site and the such. No big stockpiles of soil. You won't have that anyways. There's no room here. You can see the whole site is pretty consumed, so there won't be a ton of materials on the ground level there. What else did I miss? I think that's all I had. I'm sure Mr. Canis will just scroll through and see. Yep,
This is just S and E, so,
yep.
okay.
Actually, before you,
Oh, any questions? Yeah.
how does the stormwater management system work in a flood? Because I'm assuming it discharges into the Goodwise River, you know, which is what, 150 feet away,
Mm-hmm.
which is also flooded.
Mm-hmm.
So where's the water gonna go?
So the stormwater management isn't to mitigate flooding.
Okay,
The stormwater management's in a day, the 1 through 50-year storm event, and that's what this does. A 100-year storm event, there's, you know, and any storm event, it's not designed to mitigate floodwaters. It's designed to mitigate stormwater runoff on your normal storm events. What happens in a flooding event, the properties flood, and then over time they dissipate and the floodwaters reside again, right? So this is designed to treat the 1 through 50-year storm event.
okay. And there's capacity to handle that?
Correct. So this meets the 1 through 50. And the design approach is, you know, as you guys know the word fresh meadow, it's not taking any of the existing building or parking lot into account. It's taking it as the whole site is grass as a pre-condition. And then the post-condition is obviously what you see here. So there's an even bigger delta than you normally would see than what exists today. Right? So you're not taking what exists today as in terms of impervious surfaces and comparing them to our proposal. It's grass to this. So it's a bigger delta that you're seeing. And that's based on your zoning regulations.
How many stories is the building?
What is,
You're the engineer.
oh, the architect can answer that.
Okay, I was asking you.
I don't know if it's classified as a 2 or a 3-story
You
building.
don't know?
I don't know from a zoning perspective. It's 3 stories. I mean, there's the parking garage and then 2 stories above it.
So it's 3 stories?
Correct.
Okay, it's a 3-story building.
Correct.
Okay. But did we want to go through the rest of this 14-page letter?
Which is that?
That's the one, Joe Canis has got his, yeah. Is Joe Canis going to speak tonight? He's here, right? Yeah, he's here. Okay. You're hiding behind a couple of nice ladies. Okay, then we'll wait for Joe to answer that. So everything that you basically said is kind of sort of summed up in here, and you just brought us up to speed.
Yeah, I just hit the high ones. I mean, Joe might go into more detail about a couple of them, but
Right. Okay.
All right.
You guys, any questions for this gentleman?
I'd like to hear Joe.
Okay. We'll do that at the back end. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Matthew Pop, landscape architect, Environmental Land Solutions.
Welcome, Matt.
Prepared the landscape plan. We made a few minor changes to the landscape plan, and Bob's gonna. The main changes are, we added the parking pull-off area in the front of the building. Along the foundation of the building, we increased the height of some of the shrubs. That was one of the comments that ARB made, just to kind of screen the parking areas. So instead of being like maybe a 4-foot maximum height, the shrubs, now most of them are gonna grow to like a 6 to 7 foot height, accented by taller shrubs. So again, just basically the heights around the foundation plantings are taller. And then along this edge right here on the far right, the kind of the northwestern property line, we kind of show the existing trees right here. And mainly all that vegetation is going to remain in place. And we just have a few shrubs in there to infill some of the gaps. Mainly in the back, towards the top of the sheet, it'll be in the southwest corner. There's some gaps, so we're going to have some plantings there to fill in. I did show the trees that are to be removed. They're kind of, might be tough to see in this photo, but they're in a very light fine blue. One here, 2, 3. There, in the one in the front. 4. So those trees are to be taken out. Yep.
Oh, I see the fourth one. Okay.
Yep. There's 2 of them together.
Yep.
Yep.
1, 2,
So, and
3.
that was taken from a Frateroli survey that was done a while back. So some of these trees that are existing on the side over here, the Frateroli plan noted that 2 of them were actually stumps. So, but there is vegetation through there. It's a lot of saplings and understory plants. I think most of it's actually Norway maples, but it does provide some good screening. So that's it quickly.
Why don't you tell me about the dog park?
Just basically lawn area.
Okay.
Every residential building I worked on, if you don't think about the dog park or the place for dogs, they have dogs. It's do a lot of work at Harbor Point. They didn't realize that in the beginning. Now every building's designed for dog areas.
You're gonna make it orange like Harbor Point's dog park in the middle?
No, they have, yeah.
This is
It's
pretty
actually
orange.
a well-used area. It's very active. It's probably the most active area, in Harbor Point.
Yep, no, I don't see.
Again, that is just a lawn area back there. There is a underground drainage pipe running through there, so we can't have trees back there, so it's probably a good spot to have it. So.
It's not fenced by at all, right?
No, just wanted to make sure we call out an area.
Okay. And I guess you could put one of those things in there for the poop bags like they have over at Federal?
No, we could, yeah, I think that would be well worth it, yeah.
Okay.
A waste station.
Is that what they call it, a waste station?
Waste station?
But
I think
nice
so.
little poop.
That's right, yeah. Station.
Okay. You gotta have a poop bag, right?
Yeah. So,
Okay. Anything else, gentlemen?
This might not be a question for Matt, but is that crosswalk moving on Old Kings Highway?
Is what?
The crosswalk moving? Looks like it currently is gonna go right into the proposed parking lot.
probably would get realigned.
Just, if I may, for Matt,
Oh, wait, yeah, it's on the original plan. So let me, is it on there?
before Matt goes, if I can, just quickly?
Okay, Matt, you had another question for you, Matt?
Just how broad would you expect most of these trees to be in 10 years? Will they be encroaching on the sidewalk?
Well, in the front, they're very narrow growing, they're upright, like the holly that we're proposing. You know, it's probably about 2.5 feet wide by, 7 feet tall, so very narrow, upgrowing. There's some arborvitae that are next to it, extremely narrow growing arborvitae type that we're using. I would think that they wouldn't be encroaching into the sidewalk.
Okay,
So, or if they plant the right plants, they won't be. So,
okay.
so.
And could be cut back without harm to the?
Well, they shouldn't be cut
shrub?
back. If
No.
they're being cut back, that,
Even
they-
the shrubs or bushes on the Old Kings Highway side?
Again, those are probably 2 feet wide or so.
Okay,
And actually, the symbol I use is actually smaller than I normally would use because they are a narrow growing type plant. So.
well, that's what I kind
Yeah.
of was concerned about, that the symbol you use is a little smaller than you
Yeah,
might
no, it
otherwise,
is,
so-
it is, because, I don't want to show a shrub that grows 2 feet wide, I don't want to show a 3-foot symbol. And then when it gets installed, it looks like it's underplanted.
Okay,
So-
so you don't see it encroaching on the sidewalk?
No.
Okay.
So
Thank you.
That stuff is designed to cover the stuff on the first floor, which is the,
Yeah,
It's the windows
the
too.
openings for the garage.
and how tall is this building? Is it 2 stories or 3 stories?
I'll have to ask the architect.
You're an architect, he's not.
Well, you said before it was 3 stories, so I'm going to go with
I'm
what
asking you,
said.
you're an architect, I'm not an
It's
architect.
3 stories.
It's a 3-story building.
Yep.
Okay. Just go over the lighting one more time, because everybody wants to make sure there's enough lighting on here. I mean, I see you have it cut away in the corner of the lighting.
Yep, so the lighting is proposed,
Let me go back to that. So you can show.
Is it at the front entrance, on the side entrance?
yeah,
of the
there's a
parking?
number of them, they're fixtures. Sure, here's the,
Yep,
back there is the fixture detail. There's 1, 2, 3, 4. There's another one somewhere hiding over here. But so those are, they're not, that bright, I would say, the fixture we're using, because there is the next size up, kind of a medium-sized fixture. These are the smaller ones. I don't want it to be, bright. I just want it to be, just enough to light, the sidewalk area. I don't really want to light the road area.
great.
So,
So the lighting on the backside that faces 800 Post Road, is that right? Is it over there too? Would be to the right,
so which light are?
Along that walkway, I think he's talking.
along the
Back
walkway.
through here?
Yeah,
Well, I would think that underneath the building, there'd probably be down lighting from under the building, lighting, that area, and that light would,
to get out to the dog park at night.
so, it'd be right through here, the parking underneath it, so it'd be lighting underneath the building to light the parking underneath the building, and that would light, the dog run, or the dog park.
Okay. Did ARB sign off on those lights? Did they like them? Did you show them to them?
They didn't sign off on anything, I don't think, I believe.
But,
So,
I mean,
I don't-
Liz, you've been in front of
Well,
Liz. guy over
they've
100
signed
times.
off on this fixture type in the past,
Yeah, all right. That's
So.
what I'm asking.
yeah,
Okay,
dark sky compliant.
I'm sorry?
Dark sky compliant, shines down, warm tone.
And how tall, how far off the ground?
Yeah, I would assume they probably would be, like 12 feet or so.
12 feet off the ground?
Yeah, about, yeah.
But that's, the garage entrance, I think, is 7 or 8 feet, right? So you're 5 feet above the garage entrance door?
So again, they would have to line up with the architecture on the building and where they would go. So,
Okay, get out on that. So
no,
it's
they're not actually not.
Yeah, there's no lighting on the architectural plan, or on the front cover, anyway. Okay, so we'll let ARB deal with that. Anything else, lighting, and Matt's great with lighting and parks and landscaping and whatnot. You good for now? Okay, and sorry you lost the roof deck that you were gonna do last time. That would've been a good project for you.
In a pool, in a swimming pool, yes.
Okay. Thanks, Matt.
Thank you.
Is there a way to get to the dog park from inside the garage, or do you have to go out the front doors and around?
You can walk through the parking lot.
Yeah,
Again, it's just a lawn area.
but there's no door in the back, so you're walking out the front or the side and then going around.
No, you're just walking across.
Can you flip to the other one's black and white? You can, I think you can see the elevator superimposed. So in the middle, if I live on the 3rd floor, I'm taking the elevator down and gonna be right above where it says residential, right? That's where the elevator is?
Yes.
And then you
Can
can
you
walk,
just point to it so everybody knows what we're talking about? You can use your finger, that's fine.
and then you walk what, down to Sedgwick and then around?
No, you can
Is there a
walk
door?
right through.
Oh, there's a door back there?
Well, there's parking underneath the building, so you can kind of walk through.
Isn't it enclosed?
You don't have to hop a wall, do you?
Yeah, the parking's enclosed, right?
There's a door right here.
Into the parking garage. How do you get from the garage outside the building? You can get into the garage.
This is a means of egress.
Oh, you can go out there.
What's 4 LA plus 5 LR mean?
The shrubs, LA is a Lycophae exolaris, evergreen, ground cover, 2 feet, 3 feet height. The LR is the Lorope, ground cover, 8 inches
Okay.
high.
So that's bushes there. I don't see the door.
I don't see the door either.
Yeah.
There's a door back there?
I can show it later on the architecture.
Okay.
Okay. So on your landscaping thing, you should probably show a door somewhere or other. But it's right next to the bike, there's the bike rack there. 2 bollard bike pad. Is that enough bike racks for your building? Matt?
4 bikes.
Just 4?
22 units?
Yeah, I would think people probably, if it's your own bike, you're probably taking it with you maybe. I would think to keep it in,
Up into your apartment?
or there's storage inside. Or
On the 3rd floor? Okay.
I think my brother has, he's on the 4th floor, he's got his bikes inside.
What?
My brother has his bikes inside on the 4th floor,
Yeah.
so, yeah, he's.
I know in Harbor Point, they're heavily used. Nobody keeps them in their apartment.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they've got 2 of them on every parking
Yeah,
floor.
every building, I did another building, it's a bike room on the ground floor in Westchester.
Yeah, they're always full.
Okay. Because that was part of a letter about bike racks, wasn't it? I saw that someplace.
I don't think you can get out there.
Or one of Madison's letter, loading storage, pedestrian,
Can't be, because look at it's all.
pedestrian paths, landscape roof. Do you think there's people in the bike racks? You didn't make that. Okay. We can come back if we need to, right? All right, sorry, Bob.
Okay.
No, it's okay, Neil. This slide is from the original, first presentation, but it's an overhead with the.
This is traffic, right?
This is the spot and the.
So Neil
Crosswalk.
Olinsky for the record with SLR. So to answer the question specifically about the crosswalk, it is being proposed to be moved, shifted up a bit north on the Old Kings Highway approach to the intersection. And
How far north?
I don't have a scale, but probably about, 5 to 10 feet, if that,
Is it? I'm
to
sorry,
line
go
up
ahead,
with
go
the
ahead.
proposed.
Yeah, I was gonna say, is it past the sidewalk on the other side? You see how it stops?
It's such a wide radius, it's right about the same spot. And if it was really an issue, we could angle it a bit so that the east part landed at the
Right.
preferred spot. But how it's shown is fine.
Okay, I mean, I know Chief Anderson doesn't like sidewalks to nowhere, or it's crosswalks to nowhere. That's his wording, not mine.
It's very close, and we can angle it on the east part. And corresponding with that, we're gonna move the stop bar up to the north a bit as well, and that's gonna help also with visibility, so that a northbound car at the stop bar will be able to better see the other legs of the intersection as well.
Okay. Now, did you put the loading space on your plan?
Well, this is an old plan again. We pulled this back up from, actually, this is over a year old.
Yeah, we've been working on this in 2019. so-
This is a conceptual plan, so it's not going to turn into a construction document. The loading spot is shown on the civil engineering plans.
Yeah, right, but I'm just trying to make sure the loading dock's not blocking the crosswalk or something.
It's not. If, it's not. And if it is, we can move things a tad.
Well, according to Matt Pop's plan, it's right on it.
Do we want to pull
Line
the
of-
plan again?
Line of exactly.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to know a little more details about the sight lines, if there is a truck that's sitting in that's designated spot, and somebody's at that crosswalk, will they be able to see past that truck and to see oncoming?
Yeah, so this crosswalk here is not correct, because it's going to get shifted. Do we have the civil engineering plans? I don't know if they're shifted.
Matt's plan's wrong? He's been here 100 times.
No, that's the existing one.
That's the existing one, but what we're proposing is to shift it.
Existing,
Yeah, the civil.
proposed residential apartment building.
This is the
LP1.
proposed ramp.
Hold on, let me get there. You see what, you see two? This is Andy, right? You're C2 guy. I don't know. You got Neil's plan, you got Matt's plan, you got Andre's plan.
For the record, Andy Sumalides again. So here's that loading space. Right beyond that, you see the crosswalk, the handicap ramp. If you look at the
Okay.
C1 drawing,
Yep.
so it's beyond it. So there's a crosswalk, there's the loading space.
That's the crosshatched little thing, right? Is that what you're talking
Yeah,
about?
that's the handicap accessible, well,
With the-
tactile,
Yeah.
yeah.
So if someone is at that spot, a pedestrian here, they're not going to be blocked from view by a car at the stop bar. Just to
No,
make that clear.
I think the question was, were they gonna be blocked in view by a Amazon truck in the loading?
No, because if an Amazon truck is in here, they're not going to be further out than this point right here. So if a car is approximately at the stop bar here, the driver is right here, he can see here without a box truck being in the way and blocking.
Right, but if they're further back on Old Kings Highway, like they're pulling out of the Mechanic Street lot.
Well, they're coming to a stop because there's a stop bar here behind the crosswalk.
And I was also inquiring about the pedestrian walk there, and to the extent that, a truck is not pulled in neat and tidy into that little spot, and they're kind of half out of that spot. Well, somebody that wants to cross that walk, that looks to be maybe 10, how many feet away, are they gonna be able to see? They're gonna have proper sight
I
lines?
mean, they can stop, well, okay, first off, this is 10 feet wide.
Yep.
Box truck is, if it's, per regulation, not an oversized vehicle, it's only 8.5 feet wide.
Okay,
So you got to figure driver of a box truck knows what he's doing. He's going to pull into the spot appropriately
Okay.
and not hang out into the travel way. Therefore, he's going to be in this 10-foot spot, and he's not going to be hanging out on the street. And again, it gets back to the point that any motorist who's approaching here has to stop at the regulatory stop sign at the stop bar.
yep.
And at that point, they're going to look, see if there's any cars coming, and if there's any pedestrians ready to cross. And they're going to be able to see.
Because that's one way there going, I wouldn't say going.
Not correct. This is
What's that?
two-way.
Two-way.
That's
Two-way.
two-way, that's
Two
right.
ways right there.
Driveway.
Up to there, yeah.
Yeah, it's two ways.
Do I-
Great, I'm sorry.
So if you're headed southbound in a car, you have to, it says do not enter, you have to take a right into the Mechanic Street parking lot.
In that spot for the trucks, there's the cutout for the entrance to the building. Is the 30 feet inclusive of that cutout, or does it stop where the radius to the northern side of the cutout comes? You know what I mean?
I want to
Is
say.
this,
Andy's probably better.
the spot isn't a perfect rectangle, right? It's a rectangle on three sides, and then there's like an angled cutout on the south side, right?
Correct. So
From here to here.
from this point to this point,
Yep,
30 feet.
30 feet. So if you factor in the cutout, and you were to draw a line from the cutout, then that doesn't become 30 feet, it becomes what,
Yeah, that's
26?
that's just a turning radius. So if you were to take.
Oh, that's not actually being,
That'll be part of
flush.
the acreage, it's flush. So this is a flush curve.
okay, so that's not a separate curb there.
Correct.
Like, there's no angled bit, because they'll never pull into that little spot,
Correct.
right?
So this is all flush.
Okay,
Just like you would do a sidewalk at the crossing, where it ramps up or ramps out to.
gotcha.
To a flush drive and crosswalk. Similar condition here. So this is a flush condition. You can see the curbing here comes around.
You're gonna paint that though, so that they don't encroach on the entranceway to the building, right? Because a truck there probably makes it impossible to make a right from Old Kings Highway into the building.
Right from,
If you're coming off Sedgwick, make a right on Old Kings to go right in. Imagine a truck is parked perpendicular to the entrance to the building. It's hard for a car to make a 90-degree right turn without any radius.
so you're saying cars here, how's somebody pulling in?
Yeah, if they're all the way backed up, right? Is there some way to stop it from being all the way backed
Yeah,
up?
we could do some different textures here, right?
Some
to
way.
Differentiate the driveway
Yeah.
from the loading area, for sure, yeah. I mean, the flush curb, typically, you would put a flush concrete curb.
Right.
beyond
I'm just
the
thinking,
asphalt.
I'm not thinking Amazon. I think like when people are moving in and out, a giant
something
moving
bigger.
truck, it's gonna make it very difficult to turn into that building from that approach,
No, I hear what you're
right? It could get, at 30 feet, 26 feet, it's really
saying. Yeah, make
close.
sure the back end isn't hanging.
Yeah,
out.
exactly. Because if it hangs over by even a foot, almost possible to come into the building. Forget about emergency
And
vehicles.
just, if you would walk me through leaving that spot. So the truck is pulled in, does it have to back out, or it's gonna go over that flush curb you just described, or how does it get out?
I mean, it depends on which way he's pulled in, because if he's heading this way, with the north, or the front of the bumper here, he's gonna have to essentially back out, do a back out and then go. Of course, stopping at the stop sign. Then proceed. If the front of the car is this way, they're basically gonna pull out and go out the Mechanic Street lot.
Out the Mechanic Street? No.
Can the Mechanic Street lot accommodate a giant moving truck?
There are already box trucks parked in that
Yeah.
lot right now.
No, he's talking about a moving truck. He's talking about Allied moving van.
Well, I mean,
He's
we're
not
talking
talking
about
about
a 30-foot
Amazon,
box truck.
Staples.
Yeah, they could fit. I mean, it's a standard size drive aisle width in the parking lot, so it can accommodate any truck that's not oversized. And building management, if I'm not mistaken, is also gonna, they're gonna manage it, so they're not gonna have tractor trailers here for move in and move out, which you're probably not gonna need it anyways, because these are apartments and they're not.
Right, but buildings
houses.
sell, remember, the building management changes all the time. You start talking like that, I'm putting you on the land records, because my company manages buildings, we're not managing this
Just
one.
putting that out there. I mean, but again, I think it comes down to the fact that this is an apartment building, and you're not gonna have tractor trailers like you're gonna move someone's single-family home with a whole bunch of furniture. These are relatively small apartments, so, yeah, it's very unlikely.
I moved my relatively small apartment and a tractor trailer into my house. And that moving van was huge. Steinway moving and storage.
Well, again, it's
You said it, not me, I didn't say it.
just having a
And where's the
discussion here.
sidewalk on here to get around this truck?
Sidewalk is right here. It's gonna get moved.
What's that?
The sidewalk is currently at the curb line, it's gonna get moved to here.
Right, I'm staring at how wide's that
How
new
wide is
sidewalk
it?
now? Because you got your crosswalk, which Andy did with the little rubbery things on it. Then you got your moving truck, and then you got a sidewalk that's got a bunch of X's on Andy's plan.
It's-
So I'm trying to find out how
it's a
wide
standard
that sidewalk is.
It's a standard 5-foot sidewalk. That's typical ADA pretty much.
Okay, that's what this thing I can't tell. So the sidewalk goes, so I'm walking down Sedgwick. I made a big round turn, then I gotta duck down the sidewalk that's, it goes from, I don't know, 15 feet wide down to 5.
I'm not following. So
What's
where
that?
is it 15 feet?
I'm walking down Sedgwick with my dog. We just left the dog park. Okay? I turn the corner, right? Yep.
Yeah.
I wanna hug the building.
So this might be, what is this width, Andy, do you know? 5 foot to 5 foot?
Where, it's
There might be a
impossible. The
little-
truck's there. Your Amazon truck is in that parking space.
Why don't you walk through the garage?
This-
Because I'm walking my dog.
If you could follow this in my finger,
I wanna keep the dog out in the sun.
this is the sidewalk right here.
You want
Right.
the
Basically the
public,
width of my finger.
do you want the public walking through the garage?
We're talking about the sidewalk on the side.
Correct, yeah.
outside
I'm
the
talking about
building.
walking in front of the building.
So follow my fingertip. It's going here, 5-foot sidewalk the whole way. And connecting with the existing sidewalk at the Mechanic Street driveway.
Okay. You got that? Okay. Okay, what else you gonna tell us?
That's pretty much it for me.
What about, who's gonna tell us where the garbage truck's going? I mean, I know we had this before, where the garbage truck, it's, because the last time we couldn't figure out how tall the entrance to the garage was. And we didn't know if the garbage truck was going into the building, not going into the building. But now one of these letters says the height of the parking garage is 7 or 8 feet, I think it says.
One was 8.5, I think. There might have been 7.
So that's not you, Neil, that's Andre?
It has more to do with the building.
It's part of the building,
The garbage is part of the building, okay.
yeah, where the garbage,
And the garbage on the first floor.
the enclosure where the garbage is on the first floor. Actually, not the first floor, the parking garage level.
Which is the first floor.
Sure, the first floor, sure.
I'm just trying to make sure it's the first floor.
Yes, Mr. Jones.
Thank you.
All right, you guys are gonna have to bear with me for a second if I can't navigate this. My name is Mark Andre, I'm the architect for this project. I would like to go over the few changes that we made or concern that we address. The plan review.
That you addressed with us? Okay.
Just give me a second. Okay. So where my little hand is right now, that's the, oh, sorry. Okay. This little area here, that's the recycling center. That's where we have all the warlock for the entire building. We have doors, we have flood vents, all enclosures below the base flood. They all have flood, smart vents, which means the FEMA standard when it comes to flood proof.
Just go closer to the microphone, if you don't mind.
Yeah, sorry.
You said rollouts, is that what you said?
Correct.
Okay. That's the plastic ones that are like 2x2?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. And then these little gray areas, these are the location of the flood vent. Maximum, they will be no more than 12 inches above finished grade. All the elevations are NAVD 88.
Say that again, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
I'm
They're
sorry?
12, you said they're 12 inches above.
NAV, I think it's NAVD 1988.
Okay.
That was one of the comment from the plan review.
Okay.
The lobbies are the minimum that we need. The building has 2 main staircases. We have this cross hatch area in here. That's a means of travel that basically allow residents that exit the staircase from here to discharge to the right of way. And from that access, one could also use that to access the little dog area.
All right, so that's what you were talking about earlier.
Correct.
So between 18 and
So-
19, there's a
So
door?
you actually have 3 access points to exit or to have access to the dog area. There's an exit here, there's an exit in the staircase, and then there's another exit here. So you can go under the building. From here, you have direct access to outside, and you can go around to get to the dog area.
So there's a door between spots 18 and 19? I think you gotta shift it over. You can't see it.
You can't see it. Correct. Yeah.
Okay, can you shift it over? Oh, there you go. I gotta go back, there you go. Yep. That's outside.
Yeah, between 18 and 19, that's correct.
There is a door there.
Well, that's a walkway. The door is from the exit staircase.
So that's just an open,
Correct. That is correct.
there's an opening there.
Correct. So when you get out of that staircase, you don't re-enter. If there is an emergency, you wouldn't re-enter the lobby. There will be exit door to the outside. So you don't actually, it's an exit because you're not going under the building. That's discharged to the exterior.
No offense, but these plans don't match.
Um,
I'm looking at your plans, and then Land Tech's plans, and then Matt's plans. This has got parking space 18 doesn't exist on here, and parking space 18 doesn't exist on here. That's where Andy's drain thing is.
we have a total of 38 spaces.
Right, but he's asking if the door is between 18 and 19.
There's a cross hatch.
I see it. I
Between-
got you that on.
Yeah.
It's on your plan, right? It's not on the other two guys' plans.
So,
LP1, it's not on.
It's not on LP1, it's not on C2.
Is it on the plans that were submitted today that we just got?
No, the plans we got today is Andre's plan.
Yeah, they're not even close to lining up.
Yep.
yeah, the
That's
footprint,
on
Mr.
there.
Chairman, the footprint will not change. It's the same.
I'm not asking about
Oh, okay.
footprints, I'm asking about parking space 18.
Got it.
And this looks like it's a void, and you got a parking space there,
Yeah.
and then you got a door between 18 and 19, and 18 doesn't exist. Right there.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah, yeah.
See what I'm talking about?
Yeah, there's no 18.
On here,
Yeah,
that.
yes.
So I don't know if you guys are working together or separate, or what's the story here?
So,
Right? Yeah, that's the void that sticks in.
Yeah.
Great.
There's no 18. There's no
Great.
19.
We're talking about here. I mean, whose plan's right? Andy's, is yours right? Matt's just putting in
Mr.
pushes.
Chairman, we will clarify that. I think the space that you're looking at, it's much larger, so we have space. So we shifted to create that cross hatch for the walkway. So in the previous plan, you probably have that space 18 and 19.
Which previous plan?
Yeah, let me
I
pull
got
this
them
up.
today.
This is 18,
Right, that's what I'm
and
asking.
this is 19.
Correct.
We don't show the crosshatch walked area, but the same number of parking spaces exist.
But how come there's a heavy, on your plan, how come there's a heavy black line that outlines that whole thing? And isn't that in the middle of your 18?
Well,
What's
this
that?
is- So what we show hatched is the building envelope.
Gray. Would you show gray?
Gray, I'm sorry, hatched gray,
Whatever, okay.
is the building envelope.
Okay,
This part is exposed, has no roof over it,
Yep,
critical to our plans for drainage purposes.
got it.
But this is the same parking space, 18, right here, where it's not hatched gray. We just don't show that hatched
Oh, so
walkway area.
18's not undercover.
Correct,
Got it.
18's exposed.
Okay,
How do you
Okay.
accommodate?
So this area is exposed, and this is a building code issue. But
okay.
this is open to the elements.
building's
Got
got a cut in, I guess.
Yeah,
Yep.
so the building does this.
Yeah, yeah.
So the back of these spaces overhang a little bit here, and this whole area is open, no roof over it.
You agree with
Got
him?
it.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Does Matt agree with him? Because Matt's got bushes there. He's got a whole bunch of bushes. He's got LR4, LA5.
Yeah. That cutout, that was always been part of our original, that never changed. The crosshatch was to to show to the fire marshal there's a actual means of egress. So if we do end up building this building, that crosshatch has to be built. So that no one can park there, because it's part of our means of egress.
Wait, so
So
you just said no one can park in the area.
in the crosshatch area, that's a no parking zone. 18, 19, between 18 and 19, the crosshatch is a no parking zone.
Yeah, here, you can't park here, but that's a spot, and this is a spot.
Okay. So it's wide enough, right?
Correct.
And there's a door there someplace.
Are there gonna be walls?
I don't think there's a
no
wall
wall.
between 18 and 19,
There's no wall.
but there's a wall between, I think, I mean, I'm not an architect, but there's a wall between 18 and,
18 is not-
I don't understand how that works.
there's more than that. There's a wall between 18 and 17. There's a big wall, and Matt's got bushes there. Matt's got like 4 bushes there. Right?
Which one are you referring to, Mr. Chairman?
Between 17 and 18.
Yeah, that's a portion of the building. Between 18 and 17.
No, it's
Okay.
not.
Between 18 and 19, there's a pier, a column supporting the building. And then after the column, there's a hatch area. That's the walkway. Then space 18.
So in the walkway, there's columns, or on each side?
The column is between the walkway and space 19. Each space is 9 by 18.
So if you're looking out the window on the 3rd floor, in apartment number, whatever it is, you're dropping a golf ball on the roof of a car.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's nothing unusual.
Oh, I used to do when I was a kid. From the 3rd floor.
So the parking lot is essentially open to the public back there as well?
Well, you would have to go through any of the entrances, sure. But it's private property,
But if you park in 18,
yes.
somebody could throw a rock and break your car window, but if
Sure.
you park in 17, you can't.
Oh, no, yes, you can. Because the building is partly covering space 17, 16, 15.
Oh, those are all outside?
Yes, yes, correct.
Hey, Andre, what's it say on, see where it says 18 and go to the left of it? What's it say there?
This one?
The word, no, see where it says 18, now go to the left, those words? Left, 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 there's words.
That tiny little word, right underneath the one.
Building outside.
Building outside, building outside,
Okay.
Oh, yeah, that's.
Building outline.
Yeah, building outline.
Co-outline.
building outline, got
Yeah.
it.
Okay.
Can you imagine parking after?
So at some point in time, you're gonna put a door, a door between, a marking of a door between 18 and 19.
We don't have a door. We have a door off the staircase tower. The door is right here, Mr. Chairman.
No, I got you, but
Yeah,
there's,
so this hatch area is to define the walkway. If there's an event of a fire, you cannot put bushes there. You can just exit that door and you walk through the
Right, so
parking
it's-
lot. You
Right.
wrap around the building.
okay,
That's an exit discharge, that's a walkway.
I got that.
Maybe show an elevation.
But there's,
You have a wall through the hatchway, though. You have a dark black line going right through the hatch.
That's not a wall. That's-
No, it says, that's not a wall. This is just a walkway. 36-inch wide travel way. That's
Right.
all it is.
let me phrase it another way. Is there a steel door when I go from, when I'm walking down that walkway, do I have to open up a panic bar door?
No,
So it's a wide opening.
correct,
There's no security steel door there.
correct.
Okay.
Under the
He's
garage.
an architect too, I guess.
He
knows what's going on.
Mr. Chairman, with due
Yeah,
respect,
no,
he's the
but no,
less.
you gotta jump over the wall to get to the thing. I mean, look at the pictures. This is you jumping over walls to get inside.
Yeah, but
Would it be possible to show us the elevation of that side of the building?
It's cut, you can maybe see, yeah, it's here.
No, that's not.
No, that's not it. We're
That's
talking the
not the
back side of the
backside.
building.
Yeah.
Sorry, you're right.
Is it SK 201? That's the best I could figure.
Yeah, SK 201 looks like it, right?
I think.
Where are all those
Well, that might be,
I- Those are all the parking
Here it is.
spaces.
No, not those, but this.
Yeah. And then they have this weird door in the back. They don't have it on this map.
Well, that's,
Okay. I think I find,
Okay.
okay, you see where this, see this door here?
what plan are you on, sir?
SK 201.
That would be SK 201.
so that is a door.
It looks like you have a vent
Yeah, but the
there.
door is in the staircase. It's not on the outside of the building.
Oh, that's
Well,
recessed?
Point to it. Point to what you're talking about.
This door you were referring to, that's in the staircase.
Where? What door?
There's
This
a
partial
porch over there.
section of the door
What door?
with the little orange outline,
So that's back here.
that's all the way back.
Oh, okay.
That little outline where where that little orange outline is, that's the flood vent in the staircase. And that door is in the same plane, in that staircase.
Do you understand?
And the hatching you have right in the
Do you?
method of
Yeah,
egress.
I
No,
got it now.
not that door. I get that. No, to the
This
left,
one?
down. No, where
There's
your
a
finger just
flood
was.
there.
Yeah.
Right
It's,
here.
no, in the middle of the orange.
Oh,
Other way, go left, go left. Oh, don't go left.
It's like in the
Left,
middle of
left, 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 left.
it's
Stop.
right here.
That, nope, a little bit more. That thing.
the door's
What's
all the way
that?
back there.
Oh, that's in the parking garage. That's not the door we've been talking about.
That's further into the parking garage.
Correct.
30
That's
30
where space,
That's by space 33.
no. That would be space 19. There's a column here. The walkway is after the column.
I think that's by space 12.
I'm now even more confused.
There's no door.
No, I think the opening he's referring to is by space 12. You're talking about this opening here?
No, this thing. What is this thing?
Oh, I don't know, I was gonna ask that, are those balconies?
That's what,
If you go to the elevation, go back to the elevation,
SK 201.
what is that thing?
are those black railings, are those?
Yeah, these
balconies?
are just railing in the opening, the garage openings.
Okay, and then the ones
So
up
there's
above?
no, I mean, you could jump over them, but that's not where that travel discharge we're talking about.
Right, and
You
then.
couldn't put a gate there.
Where do you walk into the building in this view?
Right here.
In,
That's a flood vent.
that's a flood vent.
No,
That's
no,
a
no,
flood vent in the staircase.
it's in the stairwell, in the
It's
middle.
down
In the stairwell,
Setback.
just like
It's
the
set
door.
back into the building.
So that's the opening. Is that
Yes.
Yep. It's 2D
non,
version.
that looks like it's got brick all over it.
Me
Right,
too.
that's in the building, where the staircase is, the skin of the staircase.
And the white stuff to the left, that's just a,
So that door that you're looking at?
that's an architectural feature?
I get that.
Which one?
That's
Here?
the flood.
All I want to
It's all
know
the
is
white
The
what
corner?
is on this picture,
And then
and
when
he's
it
saying
starts
it's
to
right
get
here,
gray,
where there's a
that's
bunch
the
of brick.
inset that you
Where
see
this
back
is
there.
open,
Right.
and this is open. So why is this brick?
No, there's a pillar here, there's a pillar here.
Yeah, but this whole thing is bricked up.
No, that's behind here.
Um,
It's not showing dimensional.
So,
Yeah, but
Mr.
it's
Chairman,
terrible drawing.
Yes, sir.
let me try to guide you a little bit better.
Yeah, I mean, it's
This
not supposed to be this hard.
Okay,
That's
this
what's the
balcony
problem.
here,
Yes.
this one here, and this,
Yeah?
They not windows?
that's this area.
So that's the third floor of that area.
It's in the first floor, in the it's in the second
That's
floor
an
apartment, the
apartment,
third floor apartment, correct.
That's a third floor apartment.
Yeah, so when that elevation you were looking at,
Third floor.
with the grid, you were looking at this fenestration right here. And then there's the gap, then there's the building. The building is at an angle, so it looks a little bit more two-dimensional when you're looking at the flat elevation. So
So-
the cutout with the railing, you're looking at this railing
Okay.
in the background.
So if I'm standing on the roof looking down that cutout, can I see the walkway?
Yes.
That's the
walkway
crosshatch?
hugging this side of the building, at the parking garage level. That is
Okay.
correct.
Okay. And how wide do you think how wide is that opening there?
Between the two buildings?
Yeah.
That's probably, I thought I had the dimension.
probably, yeah, a little bit more than 10 feet,
So how wide's the walkway?
3 feet.
So if it's 3 minus 10, I mean, the parking space is 7 feet wide. You
The
lost
parking
it.
space is 9 feet, 9 by 18,
Okay.
plus 3 feet, so it's
So-
about 12 feet.
Okay, so now it's 12 feet, not 10.
Correct. At the very minimum, it will be 9 plus 3, so that will be 12 at the very minimum.
Okay.
And there's gonna be lighting outside of this entranceway too, right?
Yeah, that's a dark alley, right?
In the back, we're gonna have some lights
Well,
back there?
We would have, we're going to have lighting underneath the parking garage.
Right, but on the
Uh,
outside of the building, I get there'll be ambient light inside of the garage for
Yeah.
the spaces, but will there be lights
We
outside?
we will address the lighting there, yeah, sure.
There's none proposed on the landscape plan.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The walkway
Hey,
will
Matt, can
be
you put
well,
lighting there, man?
yeah,
it's a door, put some lighting on the outside.
yeah, there'll be lighting.
Go light the walkway, man.
And there's no walkway to the dog park. Once you make a left out there, it's just grass.
Just go on the grass with little doggies.
Cut past which
So,
ABV.
I think I addressed the flood vent, the data that we use that matches everybody else. I think at the last meeting, the chairman had a concern about the elevator overhead. We are not proposing a rooftop anymore, so there's no access to the roof via elevators or staircases. We're only gonna have 2 hatchways, one in each staircase. The bulkhead for the elevator, measured from the 3rd floor stop to the very top will be 14 feet, and that would not be visible from the street. The parapet is about, minimum we need is 42 inches. We're proposing between 42 to 48. So around the building, there's no way you're gonna see the overhead of the elevator.
From the top of the 3rd floor, you said, right?
No, the overhead of the elevator is measured from the last stop, which is the 3rd floor.
The 3rd floor.
To the ceiling,
Yep.
plus the structure. We need a minimum about 13 and a half feet plus the structure, so 14 and a half.
Okay. So that's on top of it. So it's 14 and a half feet on top
That's
of
the
the
whole
3rd
thing.
floor, which is the
Yeah,
roof.
so when you get to the 3rd floor,
To
you
the
get
3rd
out of the
floor.
elevator, then there's the overrun. That's what we call the bulkhead.
Okay.
That's, the total overhead is included the height of the cab.
Okay.
Can you clarify that, just comparison of prior plan to this plan, the perimeter of this building has not changed?
The perimeter is still the same.
Okay, so then I'm curious as to the change in the regs that you're asking for, Bob, in 2000 that you were asking for, and now you're asking for 1,600. Back to your reg change on maximum unit size. I'm just curious why you've changed that. If these unit sizes haven't changed.
Well, let me,
I'm sorry.
to
I'm
finish your
putting it out of
question.
order.
No, not at all. It's,
Yep.
it's gonna go back to the architecture review. Where to go? Go ahead.
Sorry.
We're talking to you.
Okay.
Sorry.
I thought you were talking to me.
No, not yet. So, we first saw this building you first came for us in 2019, like August of 2019.
We had a very different design aesthetically. That design has changed several times.
Okay,
So this is the final rendition that we have now.
Is
And
that-
this rendition, we went before the architectural review board last week, right?
no, but wait a second, has the square footage of the building, the gross square footage of the building, or the unit count ever changed since 2019?
I did change.
So it got bigger or smaller? From 2019, when we first saw it, before you went to architectural review, that's when we had our pre-hearing.
We had 20 units, and it's 22 now.
So it got bigger.
So you had less units, but they were larger? Do you recall?
I can't recall.
You can't recall. Okay, thank
All
you.
right, so now you can ask Bob his question.
Okay. So, which is
I
like,
remember the question.
yeah,
The
question-
earlier version
Yep,
had, some of the units
we're bigger.
were bigger than 1,600 square
Yep.
feet. And-
Which year version you talking about?
An earlier version. When we filed the application, there were still
That's
units that
22.
were a little bit larger. The outline of the building at one point reduced a bit, not
Yep.
a great amount, but there were a couple of tweaks here and there. And so right now, the largest unit is, let me see, is 1,542 square feet, where the earlier version was more than 1,600, and I proposed 2,000 as a round number, really.
Okay.
That was-
So when you were here before on March 23rd, when you were asking for regs to go to 2,000, that was not based on this plan that you were presenting on the 23rd?
Well, it was-
It was still a 16, max 1,600.
I was looking at it, that particular point, on a little more of a broad
Basis?
view,
Okay,
because when I've done these text amendments, I do it with an eye toward what other properties might be affected, and is it something the commission would like to consider
thank you.
for more than just this one
Thank you for the clarity,
project?
because I was
mean,
thinking
that's-
I was missing something
No,
entirely.
no, you're
Got
not.
it.
And,
Got it.
and frankly, when I reduced it to 16, it was a suggestion from the staff because we didn't need more than 1,600.
Got it.
So that's
Thank you for
what,
clarity.
that's why we
Thank you.
did that.
But you're not trying to reduce it to anything, you're trying to raise it from 1,000
We're
to
reducing
16.
the request from 2,000 to
Okay,
1,600.
but you're asking us to change the zoning regs to go from 1,000 square feet to 1,600
Yes.
square feet. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question for you. When we were here in March, I believe we asked for a list of properties in town that did not get a favorable ARB, but were ultimately built. I didn't see that. Were you able to produce that?
I don't remember that specific request. I know there was a discussion about it, but
No, you said
there's
you
no way,
provided.
I don't have any way of, there's no way to search for those.
Okay.
But you said there was,
I know that there were some applications that went through without a favorable review. A couple of them, one I think was a bank. It was either where a previous bank to where Sanford Electric used to be. And then there was another one up by Brookside, I think, was another one, where the application was not, I don't think it was favorably reported by ARB.
Fairfield County Bank was favorably reported.
That was, but the bank before that, there was another bank that wanted to go in there.
but they never built it,
No,
Never built it.
no.
Right.
It
so
Eventually.
it got denied.
I don't know if, I don't remember if it got denied or they just withdrew it. One,
But they never built it.
they never built it. That same bank went over to where Brookside is and built the bank.
Okay, can I
But
ask
go
Andre
ahead.
more questions?
Who?
Andre, the architect.
Mark?
Yeah, Mark, I'm sorry, Mark Andre, sorry.
You're not getting away that easy. Any particular site?
I'm just trying to figure out, I'm staring at the letters from ARB from September 19th, 2019, May 18th, 2022, and then May 18th, 2023. Can you tell me what you've changed to try to move the ball forward? Because all three of them, the first sentence, it says, or the first paragraph, it says, after review, classify the proposal as unfavorable. That's from 19. The next one, at the meeting architect review on May 17th, we reviewed your application, new structure, site plan, 7 Sedgwick, and issued an unfavorable report. That's a year ago, May 18th. Then we're now, May 18th, 2023, architect reviewed your application at 7 Sedgwick for a third time on May 16th, 2023, and issued an unfavorable report. So in these three letters and these three different times, what changed to make it at least a little bit better, if anything?
The first design that we submitted to the ARB board, we changed that dramatically. It was a super modern architecture style building. They didn't really like it. I don't have a picture here to show you. The last design was a rendition of some of the changes that they wanted us to make, and we incorporate that. That was at our last TPZ meeting.
Okay, let's stop for a second. So in 2022, you think you changed the building?
Yes.
Okay. The second paragraph says,
They still didn't like it because they
well,
still.
let me finish. Let me just read the sentence if you don't mind.
Sure.
Is that okay? I'm not going to really paraphrase, but to a smart incorporation of this structure, comma, but this new proposal unfortunately did not consider any of those recommendations for a successful application, period. So they said
So
in
there are
two-
some key issues with the recommendation from the ARB.
But so in 2000, you said you changed it in 2000.
We made some improvement to the building, but some of the core issues with ARB, we could not address them. For
Why not?
example, they asked us to do grade plane analysis. They wanted.
Do you want to do what analysis?
Grade plane analysis, because we're in the flood zone. Grade plane analysis. So they
Okay.
wanted to see whether retail was suitable. We proved that it was not, okay? Well, we never proposed a mixed-use building, so, but we went ahead and did the exercise, and that's part of the record. We submitted that to them. They were looking for a plaza. We did not propose a plaza. So they also wanted us to set the building further back, which means that we would lose parking spaces. So some of these recommendations, we just couldn't meet them because of the program that we have. But we did address.
What was the plaza in specifically?
They wanted a public plaza.
Right.
They assumed that town residents will be going down Sedgwick Avenue, might hang out around near the Rotary. I'm not sure why they would be hanging out over there.
Is that because the building is 3 stories that
Well,
they were asking for
I-
the plaza?
I'm not sure that the 3-story has anything to do with the plaza, really. I'm not sure. I mean, if you look at their couple new development in town, they're pretty, they look as tall as our project.
Well,
So
our
I
town,
think
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I
Our
think
town
they-
regs say if you want a 3rd story, you need to put in a public plaza. You think it's a 3-story building, he thinks it's a 3-story building, and Matt
But if
thinks
you,
it's a
if
3-story
you
building.
assume the garage is a story under your regulation, then that would be a 3-story building.
So you're calling it a 3-story building? So if you need a
assume the
3-story
parking-
building, I'm asking you, you're the architect. For a third floor, you need a plaza,
No.
I think.
okay? I'm asking him. I'm not asking you, Bob. I'll get to you in a minute. Okay, so do you know the
It's a
regs,
technical question, Steve, you gotta give him that.
right?
I think our lawyer can speak to the regulation.
Okay,
There
good,
are-
Mr. Mazza.
There are 2 independent ways of getting a 3rd floor in the central business district.
Okay,
One is to have a public plaza. When you set aside a public plaza, you multiply the area of it times 2.5, and that is the 3rd floor area that you're allowed. So examples of that are the walkway at 1020 Post. That walkway is a public plaza, multiply that by 2.5, and that's the area of the 3rd floor on the larger side of that building.
and at 1020 Post, the pocket park where you used to eat Gopher's ice cream, that allowed you to get the 3rd floor at 1020 Post, correct?
No, it's not on the same site, it's on the gas station site, back when we did 1020.
I'll have to check with Mr. Genovese about that, that's what he told me.
No, I did the public plaza, so I know what we
You also
did.
did-
And the regulation was changed then to say you could still have a public plaza if there's building over it. And so that allowed that walkway to be dedicated as public plaza. You multiply the area by 2.5, and that's how you get the 3rd floor.
Okay. So
That's
where's your
one
pub-
example.
Where's your public, all right, so that's,
That's one, I said there were 2 different,
And-
totally independent ways
right,
of
so
doing it.
you didn't do that here.
No. The other way to do it is under the inclusionary zoning regulations, where under 585, if you have incentive units, which means more units than you can ordinarily build,
Right?
and you make 25% of that number of units affordable, you get a third floor as an incentive, plus the 32 and a half feet of building height. So an example of,
Okay, but you want us
That-
to change this rule? Because your
no, I'm
sense here.
asking to clarify it. It's not really a change, because with the way the rule is written now, it speaks in terms of maximum density. There is no maximum density in this zone. So, in theory, you could build however many units you want to squeeze on the site.
Which is
But
what
to
you want to
clarify
put, you want
that,
to
we can
put
still get to 32 and a
45
half.
per acre.
Pardon?
You want to put 45 per acre.
No, I want to clarify the regulations
No,
so
but you
that,
said you squeeze the most, on this site, you want to put 45 units per acre.
I didn't do that calculation. I don't know what it
Well, I can
works
do it
out
for
to.
you.
But
Take 22 divided by 0.49, you
in
get
order,
45.
in order to get to 32 and a half feet and 3 stories, 25% of that upper level is going to be affordable. Then we run the calculations in my narrative. And all the regulation change does is clarify that that's the way to do it. You treat, and we did that in the neighborhood business zone.
But we
where
didn't
there
do it in this zone. And we don't have to do
No,
it in
but
this zone.
When we
There's no
changed-
law that says we have to change it, right?
No, but we could, I'm just suggesting that you clarify your regulation, just like I'm asking that you clarify the parking regulation in the CBD.
clear to
Because
me.
right now, there's a conflict between what you passed a couple of years ago, which has a
At where?
parking
Where'd
count
we-
based
where'd we
on the
pass it a
type of
couple years
unit.
ago?
Pardon me?
Where did we pass it a couple of years ago?
A couple of years ago you did
You
this.
just said we passed it a couple of years ago.
You passed it, yes. You
Passed
passed a
what?
change in the way parking counts are done for multifamily,
Yep,
right? And they're based on so many spaces per one bedroom, so many spaces per two bedroom, et cetera. The
Yep.
problem is, in the central business district, the requirement is one space per bedroom.
okay.
Now, we are providing the number of spaces that are required under your more recent regulation. And we're just asking you to clarify that. Otherwise, we'll just reduce the parking on site down to one per bedroom.
Why don't you just,
So-
why don't you just reduce the unit count?
This got nothing to do with it. You have one more, this project has one more space than what's required under the formula that I think you meant to apply in a project like this. But if you didn't mean it to apply it here, then we're just gonna do one space per bedroom, which brings us to a lesser count. And I don't think you wanted us to do that.
A lesser count of what?
One per bedroom, one space
Of
per
parking
bedroom.
spaces.
One parking space per bedroom versus the formula that you have in other areas.
So in your guesstimate, your argument, you're saying that you get a third story for reasons relative to changing the incentive units, which we're only getting 4 affordables in the whole thing anyway,
But that, you're getting 25% of the third floor.
because you're putting all the affordables on one floor,
You're supposed to mix them up throughout the building.
right? You only have 2 floors of apartments.
Right. So you approximate equal numbers of one bedrooms and two bedrooms and first floor and second floor. So you don't have them all located in one floor or in one
I get
corner
it.
of the building. I mean,
I worked in New York
that's what
City
we're
for
supposed to do.
16 years, you don't want to put all people in the same spot.
Right.
So that's why you think you're allowed to have a third floor.
We're allowed to have a third floor because we're providing 25% of the third floor units. And what we're trying to do here is suggest something, a change in the reg that is the same as what we did in the neighborhood business zone. Where
We didn't want
there
to
was-
change this, we didn't want to change this, that's why we changed that.
But you did. No, you changed that because it was specific to a project. just like this is specific to a project, this is the genesis of it. But I tried to do it in a way that you can see would apply to the rest of the CBD as an acceptable way to do it.
So you have no interest in
Because
giving the town a
really-
plaza, which we've done at every single other building that we've built in
It's
town.
not required here. The
Okay.
plazas
That's
are
your- That's your
required,
interpretation.
well, no.
We can argue it all day long,
Sure
that's
you can.
fine.
But all the other buildings that have plazas were
Grove Street
built,
Plaza's got a plaza.
they were built before Section 580, before the inclusionary zoning reg.
Okay, so Grove Street Plaza's got a plaza. That's how they get the third floor.
That's how they got the third floor.
Right.
But there
So
are no affordables there.
And if two Squab Lane wants to get built, they're gonna put in a plaza for a third
It
floor.
depends on what they do.
If
They
they
would
get-
have to if they wanted a third floor.
Yep. And
know, if
Dave
they wanted
Dave
to- they wanted
Genovese
to
at 34 Old Kings
take the
Highway
old-
put in the plaza.
If they want to take the old Brooks Brothers building and finish up the basement as work area, they need to do the plaza.
And 34 Old
740
Kings Highway's got a plaza.
Which,
34 Old Kings Highway's got a plaza?
in
You
order-
did that application,
but there's no
remember?
apartments. No apartments.
It's top floor. So you like putting plazas. On this one, you didn't want to put a plaza.
It's two different ways of doing it, Steve.
I'm
Come
just
on.
asking you a question. It's a yes or no. You can
He's
say
not the
no.
architect.
I'm not, right, I'm not the owner, I'm not the architect, but
You're the advisor.
pointing out that there are regulations either way. And if we meet one of them, then we should be approved.
We'll see.
And if there are two different ways of doing it, you should be able to do either one.
Actually, Bob, the.
What happens if we do a plaza and 25% affordable? Do we get a fourth floor?
We don't, not in this zone.
Well, why not?
Actually, 585 says that the recreational open space requirements may be reduced. It doesn't say they get eliminated entirely. So I think Steve's point on the plaza.
They're talking about setbacks and,
Yeah, they
you
talk
know,
about
green
setbacks,
space and
they talk
things like
about-
that.
They may be granted a third story. It's
May?
a may, it's not an absolute.
Right.
It's not an as of
But
right.
that's-
And I think what you're doing with the.
It's the same thing with the plazas.
I think what you're doing with the incentive units is you're trying to back those out of the 14% of overall affordable
I'm going from 14 to 25.
for that floor. And
that
then you're only
floor.
applying 14% to the floor below it. But the 14% says all units.
But the regulation says your 14 is your base. Four or more units,
14% of
14%.
all units. That's what the
14%
regulation says. Of all
is the-
units. So every unit you
No,
build.
that's wrong. 14% is the base. If you want the incentive, then you have to set aside 25% of the incentive units.
In addition to the 14%. It's 14% of all units.
No,
The
that makes absolutely no sense to
The
me.
regulations are
Because
absolutely clear. It
it's-
says all units.
You did it that way for Norotan Heights.
I
It's a
didn't say-
different zone.
That's the way
It's a
Norotan
different
Heights was
zone.
done.
It's a different zone.
It's the same affordable housing.
It's a different zone.
It's the same inclusionary zoning
Then
regulation.
why are you changing this zone?
Why did I change neighborhood
I
business?
don't know. I don't know.
I'm asking for you to clarify it,
Yeah,
you know.
it's clear to me.
What's clear?
Everything's clear. 1,000 square feet per apartment. It's very clear to me.
It's clear, but it's not consistent with everything else that's going on in town. You have apartments in Norotan Heights, you have apartments in Corbin, you have apartments in other places where you're more than 1,000 square feet.
Agreed.
The
And I
town
think
plan
we
of
said
development
We need to
says.
keep 1,000 square feet.
The town,
It's
no,
a
no,
different
no,
issue.
no, the town
do you mean,
plan of
no,
development,
no?
no, the town plan of development says consider changing or eliminating the maximum floor areas.
Right, we've already done it at 4 different projects, so why do we have to do it another
Well,
one?
somebody requested it.
Right?
Somebody requested it.
At David Genovese's
You didn't do it
project-
on your own, somebody requested it.
Okay, and sometimes we
So
say
here,
yes,
we're here
sometimes we
making
say
the
no.
a similar request here.
Okay.
Okay.
We can say yes or we can say no.
Sure, I mean, you can also be completely arbitrary, but we're hoping that you do it in a way that's logical and follows the town plan of
Yeah,
development.
I'm very much.
And is consistent with the way you've treated other
Okay,
projects in various parts of town, including the CBD.
but the other day you referenced 745 Post Road as one of your projects, right? What's the density
That's
of that
years
project,
ago.
do you know?
I don't have the particulars from that.
It's 16.95 units per acre on 0.95 acres, on
Okay.
0.59 acres. This
In
is
what used to
45.
be the NB1 zone.
Yep,
What is 745?
16.95 units
No,
per acre.
what's the building?
Oh, that's the meat house that David Genovese and Baywaters built?
Right.
It's got 8 apartments on 0.59 acres, and it has 2 commercial units.
And
So with the 2 units on the ground floor, it's 16.95 acres per, units per dwelling units.
Okay.
Simple math.
Yeah,
You're 45 units an acre.
but
State
Fits.
regs, they want to enact is 25.
you don't have a maximum density regulation. So you
Okay.
can't decide yourself to impose a density regulation when there's no regulation in the first
Right,
place.
but we also have a maximum unit size of 1,000 square feet.
Well, then we just add units.
Go ahead. And you have to add parking spaces, then it goes
No,
back
you
to
don't,
sewer.
because you're gonna do that, then you get a 25% reduction in parking.
And then you have to go back to the sewer commission because you're gonna add more units, because at the
Well,
beginning, you said you had 22
I think Andy can talk
units.
about that, but there's plenty of capacity for that.
That's okay.
You know, we're running nowhere near 90, 100%, it's much less than that.
That's okay.
With this project. While I'm up here, a couple of things. That was sewer capacity. Flood management, the contingency plan, there's no regulation that lays out what the contingency plan should say, or even whether one must exist. Lately on projects, in addition to.
Which contingency plan are you talking about?
The one we proposed.
The flood.
The flood one, okay.
Yeah, the
Yep.
flood contingency plan. There's no requirement for it
Well,
in
I'm
the
not saying there is,
regulation.
I'm asking if you thought about it.
Sorry?
I was asking if you thought about it.
Yeah, we did, proposed one. Yeah, and yes, it's one page, but it's going to be a work in process going forward. And there have been applications of late where notices of flood control or flood maintenance have been recorded on the land records, just like a drainage maintenance plan. I would expect that you'd want to do that, but not lock into one particular contingency plan now, because they're going to change over time. The town is going to hopefully adapt their emergency response to floods and hurricanes and those sorts of things, blizzards, as the needs change. And, you know, responsible building owners are going to follow suit. The inside door Mark talked about. Okay, can I get to the peer review responses?
I have a question still for, I think it's for Andy, on my notes. It's got to do with the restriping of the road. You were narrowing a road, no, I think it's Neil, I'm sorry, Neil. You're narrowing a road and moving lines on the shoulder? Right, but
Come
you're
on up.
moving lines on the shoulder? My question is, did you get an opinion from the police or the legal traffic authority on that? You're restriping our roads.
We were suggesting throwing on essentially shoulders to the road. The peer review consultant for the town reviewed this, and I think they're in agreement, if I'm not mistaken. And that's the only review we've gotten.
So did you go to the legal traffic authority with that yet?
No,
And
we could if this was approved.
Okay,
As a
and Jeremy, when you said it went to them, the legal traffic authority, did they know about the shoulder being moved at the time?
I don't know what they knew or didn't know. I don't recall, do you remember?
I
what
don't
they said?
recall off the top of my head.
Okay, that's fine.
We would need to pull that.
Okay. What else do I have?
Just a quick point, this was This was part of the original application some months ago, so.
What year is that dated?
The date on this is February 16th, 2022.
Okay. And you think that went to the Legal Traffic Authority or no?
I think it's possible, if they've looked at it.
It was included in the original application this time, which was referred over to the traffic authority. I'm assuming the staff would send the entire application over.
Yeah, no, I get you.
So they would have,
So is the shoulder moved on that plan, Neil?
Moved, sorry.
Well, you said you were restriping the shoulder, right?
There's no shoulders out there right now, in fact. It's just the double yellow center line.
Okay, but what you proposed to do, is that on that plan that they would have gotten?
Yes.
Okay.
Except it doesn't show
The new spot.
the new loading spot.
Yeah, you're cutting that out.
No, we're not. The loading spot is here, not on Sedgwick.
And you're putting the shoulder in on Sedgwick, right? That was your idea?
Yes, here and here.
Right,
Both sides.
you're narrowing Sedgwick.
Well, define narrowing. We're not narrowing the curb to curb width,
Oh, no, I get it.
but
If I
we are
drop it-
essentially striping standard or even wider travel lanes than what the state standards are for. So these aren't going at dimensions, but this is 12 feet for the eastbound Sedgwick, width and separate from the shoulder, and which would be a 5-foot shoulder. And this would be 12 to 15 feet, I think 15 feet rather. State standard is 11 feet for a travel lane. So we're
But
compliant there.
you're essentially suggesting we move the lines closer. The white line and the yellow line.
We're not touching the yellow line.
Understood, but you're moving the white line closer to the yellow line.
Correct, but still within state standards.
Great,
Mhm.
yeah, I get it. I want to drive between the lines, right? Yeah. Okay. Hey, Jeremy, I'm understanding that Hervé went to some seminar recently
It is.
about flood zones?
Yes.
Do we have any recommendations on that?
All I have is his notes, which we can certainly submit for the record.
Can we add that to the record?
Sure. Bob, you have a copy of that? Hervé's comments. Well, just what I gave you earlier.
yeah, I'm not sure what relevance that has, because they're not regulations now. It's not specific to this application.
It's best practices today, right? He just went to a current seminar?
I just got handed this today, and
I
it's
was
not in
asking.
reference to this application.
I
It
know.
talks about things coming in the future.
Right.
Updates to mapping and changes in how they deal with the X zone and things like that. But I don't think it has much relevance in this application.
Right, so we'll add it to the record then.
Okay.
Thank you. So just so everyone knows, Hervé went to a seminar, and they taught him about flood zones and what to do in flood zones and what not to do in flood zones, excuse me. What else?
Joe has.
Okay, but the only thing I want to find out what we're going to do with ARB.
Okay.
Can I just make one comment before I forget? These
Sure.
striped lines, they're designed so that they define a travel portion. They don't necessarily define parking areas. If you go up and down the post road, you'll see some that are wide enough where you can park, and then other places where it's just not wide enough at all and you can't park. But those are there for safety, to keep cars in a relatively straight, single travel path instead of staggered, and
Yep.
that's really what they're for.
Yep.
And Neil can correct me if I'm wrong, but this is done as an off-site improvement for safety rather than we're trying to get anything out of it.
Yeah,
It's
I'm just
it's
asking.
just a
if-
safety factor.
I'm just asking if you asked the legal traffic authority, that's all. If they said it's a great idea, it's a bad idea, I don't know.
Okay.
Before we move on to the next one, I want someone to tell me what we're gonna do with ARB. I don't know if that's Andre, or you, or who.
Well, one of the issues is, state statutes can only allow the commission to keep a public hearing open for so long.
Right,
The deadline to keep the public hearing open ends in 6 or 7 days, 5 days, 6 days.
No, I think it's 9
So you
days.
cannot continue the hearing beyond tonight. The hearing must close tonight.
Okay. Unless they grant us an extension.
They've granted all the
We're done.
extensions.
The extensions are,
Keep in mind, this was submitted 4 to 6 months ago.
Okay.
So we've used all the extension time. The hearing, there's no wiggle room unless you want to have a special meeting this Thursday or something.
but the
I have a
ARB's
question
not gonna
Thursday.
meet between now and then
Right.
anyway.
Okay.
They
so
did, they
it's a short
did,
answer. Go ahead.
if I could just mention, when we were at the ARB the other night, last Tuesday, the conversation was productive. If we get an approval here, we're willing to go back to them and work out the aesthetics of it and hopefully come to some resolution of their issues so we can build a project that they're happy.
You must have an appreciation for us sitting here and seeing 3 recorded records from ARB with no approval, and clearly not a positive. It doesn't look like there's been a lot of progress that's been moved forward over multiple meetings from the ARB. So you must appreciate
I
the
do,
position
I
that
do. I've been
was
doing
held
this
in.
long enough that I know that ARB has been an integral part of the land use process here for many, many years.
Okay.
And in this particular case, the architect and the owner went back and forth a few times. Sometimes it's been less productive.
Okay.
The last meeting was most productive, but we're out of time. We're just out of time. We
Yep.
got hung up with the sewer commission. You know, that's the dilemma that we're in. We had an application previously that we withdrew so we could get to the sewer commission to resolve the sewer issue. That took months and months to get useful, complete information from the sewer commission. And finally, their own experts rendered an opinion that said there's plenty of capacity to serve this project. But meanwhile, we've been hung up in this for now going on 2 years.
All right.
So that's our, I mean,
Can we have the sewer commission's report as part of this?
it's in.
On the record? Is it
Yeah,
in there?
yeah,
Yes, it's in the record.
I mean, they've had 4 years to get ARB's approval. ARB saw it in 2019.
Yeah.
It's 2022. That's 4 years.
ARB, the first one was informal, no application. It
I
was
understand.
before the property was purchased.
I understand.
Just
They wrote you a 2-page letter.
like
and I got CC'd on
2019.
it. Okay.
Can you tell me, speaking of ARB, they saw the new brick and cement facade, I assume, last week?
They saw it.
That was, yeah. Did they comment at all?
They
on it?
asked us-
Did they think that's an improvement? Frankly, reading their letter is a little tough in terms of flows and whatever else they want. So,
I think the most that I could get out
Well,
of
we have
the
one
discussion
good
was
mark
that we
answer
did
to
make
that.
some progress. But they, it's an on-off switch. They either like it or they don't.
okay.
And if you have some things that they like and other things that they don't like,
An
they're not going
on-off
to give you a
switch?
positive report.
An on-off switch?
Yeah, it's either positive or we don't like it. It's,
Okay.
That's a first.
you know,
But, so you called it productive, but was
yes,
it?
I mean, they
Was it
actually did say
positive?
it was productive.
You can come up, Mark. You're the architect.
They did mention in, I believe in the comment they sent to you, to the board. I would assume if we had more time, maybe another year or so, maybe we would have come up with something that will please everyone. But I think the key issue for us, if they dig their heels in the sand and they want a public plaza that we can't provide, if they want less unit that we're not willing to provide, then I'm not sure how we can reduce the massing of the building. But if we're talking about fenestration, openings at the garage level, or different type of window style or material, that is all doable. We're not necessarily married to the brick, to the white siding. All these elements that are included in this design, these were based on their input. They wanted us to define, they didn't want the garage base to be well-defined, so we blended in. We extended the parapet, the facade treatment. Some of these were in response to their comment. I had meeting with staff and my client. I met with, after the meeting, during the meeting, I even offered to meet with few folks and to mark up the design that we have. But it seems like where we couldn't meet is basically the number of units and the size of the building.
I mean, we gotta move on, but it's,
Sure.
the last sentence, the proposed design restrict possession movement and does not consider the neighborhood compatibility or historic context. You go back to 2019,
Mr. Chairman,
It's-
with due
it's the
respect.
same exact thing.
We're not looking to build a mixed-use building. We're not looking to build a plaza. I'm not sure how
That's-
to address
that's-
those comments. If
Historic
that's not the
context?
But that's not the project we're proposing, Mr. Chairman.
it says historic context, doesn't that mean?
We are not in a historic district, Mr. Chairman,
Okay. According to them,
but we're not.
you're steps away from our National
But we
Historic
are not,
District.
Mr. Chairman.
I understand. You're steps away is what it says.
We could be step away from anything. We step away from a modern building, and that's the context. There's a residential, there's a shopping plaza. We're not proposing a shopping plaza.
It's your call. You can do whatever you want.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. We want to get to Joe Canis. Do you have something to add at this point?
I just want to go through these open peer review, if I could just take a couple of minutes. What I've done here is separate items left open as potential conditions of approval and items showing up as more information needed. So on the slide I have here, so I basically took all of Mr. Canis's open comments and they're in these slides. The vertical datum, NAVD 88 in the architectural plans, they're there, they'll be in the final construction drawings. Note on the plans regarding the height of the floodbed fence, this too is it's always required on the construction drawings, they'll be included. Location of equipment and utilities 1 foot above base flood elevation. Obviously, the final plans will show that. Those are, again, construction or details. Fire marshal, a comment on emergency access. I'm not sure where this is in the big picture because we eliminated the activities on the roof, and that had an occupancy load of over 300, which eliminates one major concern of the fire marshal. The other emergency access, I'm not sure what makes this project any different from the Good Wives River Shopping Center or any of the other developments in flood zones. I would note, getting back to comments earlier, that this building will be flood-proof. The apartments are going to be well above the base flood elevation. There'll be a generator on the roof. People don't have to evacuate. They can live in their units for a few days until the floodwaters subside. That's just good construction.
So you want people to live in their apartment while there's
I've done these, yeah, along the coast, you get houses built in flood zones, V zones. You build them so that they can have a party during the 100-year storm. And the house is going
And
to
the
be
people
safe.
stay in there for 4 days, wait till floodwater dissipates.
Why
That's
not?
your recommendation.
Why
That's
not?
your opinion. You want
People
us,
are-
you want me
Did
to
you
tell
ever go
22
to
families to
ShopRite?
stay in their apartment?
Did you ever go to ShopRite the day
I'm
before
asking you a question.
snowstorm?
You want me to tell 22 families to stay in their apartment?
People stock up. That's what they do.
So you want me to tell 22 families to stay in their apartment?
If they wanted to, they could. If they want to get out, they'll get out ahead of time. But you're not going to see 22 families deciding to stick it out and then want to be rescued. The floodwaters are going to subside within a couple of days,
And
right?
if an older gentleman has a heart attack, you're just gonna leave him there?
No.
Okay.
They'll-
I'm just asking,
they'll
I'm
have-
just asking,
They'll have
Bob. I'm
phones,
just
they'll
asking.
have electric, and the emergency people will be able to get there.
The generators are gonna power the units,
For 4 days.
or the generator is
Well,
gonna?
there's a generator, yeah.
Well, I thought
generator
the
on
solar is only for the lobby area.
But the generator,
The
there's going to
generators
be
for
an
the whole
emergency
building?
generator, right?
Yeah, but if it's raining, there's no sun.
Is it a diesel generator?
Pardon?
A diesel generator?
I mean, that's his
That's a
opinion.
regular generator on the roof.
What powers the generator?
Oh, I don't, that's down the road. Whatever's necessary to keep the building.
4 days.
Well, that's a question of the fuel supply, and if it's natural gas, it's just gonna keep going. You know,
the generator you're proposing is big enough to do that?
It's the fuel supply that'll,
No.
what's your
22 units is a big generator.
It's usually only life safety.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Elevator, lights.
it's exterior lights and lights and
That's what I'm
stairwells.
getting at,
Yeah.
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 It's
What
not,
what the solar panel is powering, so
Yeah, it's
in
not-
the apartment, you're not getting any juice.
it's not my gas stove, my microwave. Okay.
all right. Storm, oh yeah, okay, so we'll continue to work with the fire marshal, I think you heard that before. Stormwater management, DPW approval of the connection, we talked about that before. Okay, more information requested. Structural requirements for anchoring, again, construction drawings. Materials and finishes in the parking lot, level lobby, again, construction drawings. Transformer location, that's worked out with Eversource. They've put transformers in flood-prone areas in the past. We'll work with them and do whatever they require. Water supply and sewer system designed to eliminate infiltration. Andy talked about that before. Flood contingency plan, we talked about. Construction flood contingency plan, this is an add-on we can do before a building permit is issued for, or maybe even a demolition permit for contingency during construction. And then on the stormwater management side, tailwater, I'll let Andy talk about that. Maintenance access for oil water separator, that's Andy, and backdoor truck access, that's related to the maintenance for the oil water separator in the drainage system. So, Andy, you want to come up and just talk about these two? These three, rather.
Sure. For the tailwater, that's talking about basically pipe capacity. So that was one of Joe Canis's comments of making sure we, do a pipe flow analysis, basically, or hydraulic grade line through that pipe connection.
Wasn't that done for the sewer assessment?
This is for the storm.
Okay,
This is for the storm pipe that connects into the town's drainage system.
okay,
So the overflow from those infiltration basins, as they come out, he wants the tailwater condition for going into the town's catch basin.
okay, thank you.
I'm a little unclear, though. Didn't I ask that question? You said that there was capacity in that system?
The sewer system?
No, the stormwater management.
Correct, for the detention systems. He's saying for the pipe capacity of that 12-inch existing pipe that we're connecting to, the overflow pipe,
Right.
he's making sure there's enough capacity in that pipe to handle our system. What did we use? We didn't show the calculations. We showed a calculation basically saying what the existing condition was versus the proposed, and it's a reduction of what's exist there today. So that's how we calculated it, but then there's another calculation that actually does hydraulic grade line through the pipe, so basically a pipe connection system from pipe to structure to pipe to structure, and then that shows your tailwater conditions. So we didn't do the actual hydraulics, we did the hydrology. But considering what existed today, it's an improved condition, so we don't see an issue of being able to meet that requirement. And the two maintenance things I think we talked about in that loading space, that's where the truck can park, and then you pull a hose under the garage or into the garage to clean out and maintain that well water separator, and as well as those detention systems that are underneath in the garage. The detention systems are buried, and then there's these inspection ports that come out that you can gain access and get in there and maintain those structures. Being that, it's predominantly roof area that's getting into the stormwater system, most of the water would be what I would call clean versus a lot of, parking areas where you have a lot of salts and sands during winter conditions that tend to clog up these systems, require more maintenance. So we see this as a very low maintenance type system. Again, there's a way to access it. And then just one other thing to touch upon, I think you guys keep mentioning the sewer capacity. If you guys have it, you'll see some of the percentages in here. It will operate at 40 and 70%. We did 2 points of connection. One is right on Mechanic Street where, the lateral connects to the existing sewer and mechanic, and then we also looked at a manhole basically underneath the bridge there on the post road. So those were the 2 points of concern, study point 1 and 2. And they are at 40 and 70% with our flows added to it. So there's a lot of capacity in that line. I think a lot of the disconnect was the post road sewer line was actually lined. So they do what's called a liner within that to repair it, which gives you better flow. It does reduce the pipe size a little bit, but it does increase flows. So I think that was the biggest disconnect in the two reports.
Are you talking about the storm sewer drain that's underneath the railroad tracks at the post road?
The sewer, not the storm.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Sewer. This is for the sewer capacity. And then lastly, we talked a little bit about next door, the condos being in the flood zone. That whole ingress and egress into that lot is completely within the flood zone. The whole property's not like ours, but to gain access, you still need to go through 4 or 5 feet of water in Goodwise River Road or their driveway. So I'm sure there's a solution with the fire marshal of how they access those condos to get people in and out. We'll find a solution to access these
Right,
apartments.
but their front doors are not in the flood zone.
But you can't get in there, so somebody's having a heart attack, how they getting out?
Right, but if someone said at their front door, they're not standing in 4
Right,
feet of water.
and these front doors aren't either. They're elevated above the base flood.
The front door of this building is in the flood zone.
Correct, but that's just the lobby, not their actual units. Their units, I don't know their exact elevations, but you can't get in and out of there, is my point. Fire trucks or an ambulance can't get in and out of their site without going through 4 or 5 feet of water also. So there's got to be another solution to getting in there that would apply to our
Yeah,
site
and
as
each of
well.
those townhouses have their own front door.
Correct.
But you're saying this project doesn't impact that. There'll always be a flood problem for Sedgwick Village regardless of this project?
Correct, correct.
Guess that's it. We're done.
Okay?
I can recap, or I know you want to hear from the public, and I'll come back.
Yeah, wait, Joe Canis and then the general public. I
Oh, yeah,
apologize,
okay.
I was
All right.
waiting so long.
All right. I'm just going to reset this back to where we started.
Great.
Yeah.
We have Greg Del Rio here as well.
Oh, really?
Of Hardesty in Hanover.
If you have any questions. Oh, there he is.
It's hiding back there.
Cool. Joe Canis, you're on, man. We got your letter dated May 18th,
Yes.
and I think that's after the April 28th letter, which is your first initial thing. So take us through whatever you want to take us through.
Right, yeah, that's correct. Yeah, for the record, Joseph Canis, licensed professional engineer in the state of Connecticut, also a certified floodplain manager by the Association of State Floodplain Managers, principal engineer with Tie and Bond, who are retained by the town to review the stormwater management, sediment erosion control, and floodplain management aspects of the application. And I do want to acknowledge the applicant's efforts to address the comments in my previous memo, which actually I believe was dated on March 24th. I got those submission materials on the 15th, and I responded to that memo that you currently have before you that's dated May 18th. And I'm not going to go through every comment. A lot of those comments have been addressed, and some of them were addressed in testimony this evening by the applicant. So I'll go through the comments that are basically more important, that I think are more substantive. So the first one is comment number 5. That is about the anchoring of the structures to prevent flotation, collapse, unroll movement. And typically, something like that is done through the building, is done as part of the building permit process. The reason why I raised it here was not only to make the applicant aware, which I'm sure they're aware anyway, but this site is very constrained. You're pretty much right up to the property line. In those, for example, in those columns in the on the parking level, right? If those columns need to grow, like say 3 inches, all of them get bigger, then you really don't have any room to expand. So I just wanted the applicant to be very sure that, they were on, that their column spacing, the size that they assumed was adequate to avoid, because I think the last thing everybody wants is to come back in here for site plan modification. Maybe we'll only go through this once. And that's a similar vein that comment 6B was made in about the compatible, making sure that the design's compatible with flood-resistant materials for the lobby. Number 7 about the transformer. I'm actually going through a similar situation in Wilton, and it is correct. The utility company will work with you to get that transformer up and above the flood elevation. The applicant shows the transformer, I believe, on the Old Kings Highway side, where the ground elevation is 44, but the base flood elevation is 48.5. So that transformer will need to, be at least 4.5 feet up in the air to get it above the base flood elevation. And I think, Eversource would want you to build a platform around that for access, because, an electrician can't work from the ground, and reach up 4 or 5 feet high in the air. So that said, I was just looking to see if they had some contact with Eversource. And again, the issue here is because the site is so tight. Being able to place that transformer might be problematic. I can't say that for sure, but those conversations need to happen with Eversource. And again, the issue that the applicant might find themselves in is that they just don't have enough room to meet Eversource's requirements, and there are also requirements for setback distances from the transformer to the building that also need to be accounted for, which all could affect the design.
Hey, Joe?
Yes.
In your experience, have you seen Eversource or any utility company put a transformer that high off the ground?
Yes.
Yes.
Right. Yeah, we did it in Norwalk a couple years ago, and it needed a platform around it.
So it's something that's normal because it seems high.
Right. Yeah, it's atypical, but it's done to make the to improve resiliency in the event of a flood. The electrical components are above the base flood elevation, right? And we're doing something similar in Wilton now. So it can be done. It just needs more room than you typically would for a standard pad-mounted transformer on the ground.
Are those the project you just referenced in your own head, are they as dense as this one?
Oh, I'm sorry, what was that?
Are they as dense as this one, as tightly as this one?
There was more room on the site. One's Washington Village in Norwalk, so that it's fairly dense. The other is up in Wilton, and it's we've got more space in that
Is
area.
that Sam Fuller's deal?
No.
Okay.
Then comments 8A and 8B, where I requested some additional information about the water supply systems, sanitary sewer systems. Andy did a good job of answering that tonight, using watertight pipe and joints, so I'm satisfied with that response. My next comment is number 11A, which was my recommendation about the fire marshal or your emergency operations official, who I believe is the fire marshal. Just making sure that they had a chance to review the plans and commented on it from a flood safety perspective. In this situation, because you are, the entire parcel is in the flood zone, right? There's, could be 2 to 4 feet of water that they would need to get through to get to that building. Now, the building is designed to be in conformance with the floodplain management requirements, so that the habitable living spaces are above the base flood elevation. But part of the town's regulations also, it's actually cited right here, 829G3A, requires the commission to consider the safety of access to the property during flood events. All right, I just want to bring that to your attention. And obviously the fire marshal is in a much better position than I am to talk about, if the access is adequate. In the past, we have worked with the fire marshals or, emergency response people in various towns when we do residential in the floodplain. This situation's unique in that there is no dry access. You know, this building's completely in the floodplain.
Great.
I haven't had that experience before.
I was just gonna ask, in your experience, have you ever evaluated a building where the entire building and all access points were in flood zone?
I have not, no. No, it's only been partial. The other comment is 11B. It's related to the contingency plan, and Attorney Maslin is absolutely correct that it is not required by your regulations. But again, it speaks to the safety element and to show that, you know, that there is, you know, a thought process to document it. So that's really what I was looking for. These are typically requested. They are a requirement when you do a floodplain management certification for the state for residential projects that receive state funding. So I think in this case it's good practice just to think about the safety elements. I think Attorney Maslin's absolutely correct that these do need to be living documents. They need to be updated. You know, as conditions change, you could get a new map. Building ownership changes, and I think these could be worked out with your emergency management officials, you know, as part of the process. This is really just to, make some recommendations as to what really needs to be included in the plan.
Okay.
Thank you.
And let's see, what else did I have here? Again, same thing, your construction contingency plan for the floodplain, right? What you're looking at is how you're going to control the materials, and materials that are hazardous, buoyant, flammable, that sort of thing. And again, that's what the state requests as part of their applications. I'm recognizing that this is not a state application, but again, just out of the concern of safety, how these things are going to be managed. It could be done as later on in the process, but just to get it on the record of the things that should be considered.
Okay.
All right, let's see. And for the access, for the Vector truck, for cleaning out the water separator, that sort of thing, I brought that up just to make sure that we're aware that your headroom in the garage is limited, just to make sure that maintenance was incorporated in the design. I'm satisfied with the response. A truck can pull up, hose can extend, it's within reasonable distance. I just also want to make the commission aware that that's how that maintenance would be undertaken.
Mm-hmm.
And so, just in closing, the floodplain management regulations don't preclude development within the floodplain, right? But because of the nature, right, of the development, you're putting residents in a floodplain. Even though you're putting them above the base flood elevation, there are other safety aspects that you need to weigh as part of the application. And I think a lot of them, can be addressed by the applicant. It's just from an emergency management perspective, I think you need that input from your local official.
Okay.
Okay, so that's all I had.
Any questions for Joe?
All good?
Thanks, Joe.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Del Rio's in the house. There he is. Welcome, sir.
Hello, everyone. I'm Greg Del Rio, professional engineer in the state of Connecticut, director of traffic engineering for Hardesty and Hanover, offices in Norwalk. We provided the peer review for Darien on this project. The only really outstanding issue last time was commercial operations and curbside access for trucks and that operations that would not be able to fit underneath. And so there was some ideas tossed around. They've presented a concept now to provide this, along Old Kings for the truck access. The dimensions seem appropriate. The access seems appropriate from both directions. One direction, if you were coming from mechanics, then you would be pulling in head first and then backing out. If you were coming from Sedgwick and making the right, you would probably back into the site and then pull out. So, I think it seems appropriate. It seems like it fits. You have the sidewalk behind it. You have the crosswalk, which is still moving up as they proposed, and the stop bar, and you still have the sight line. So I think it seems to be a reasonable solution. The only question I had was the curb line, the width curb to curb existing, I believe that's staying the same. We're not moving that curb line, right? So the travel lanes and the width, I think, stay the same, so. Not the biggest deal if it changed a little bit, but it's nice to have sort of that existing width, just in case someone were doing something else, like dropping off, for example, on Old Kings Highway. You still have, you know, a 20-foot lane, so you have a travel lane and you have someone that could, you know, not park, but they could do a quick drop off and pick up, for example, and not be in the flow of traffic. So that was just my only concern with that one. And then there was another issue that came up tonight with, that you had mentioned with moving in the shoulder lines. The LTA did do their review. They had a February 9th letter that they submitted on the plan that was submitted last time, which did reflect that, and they had no concerns. And just to elaborate for everybody's edification, what that also does is it pushes the car out to the center of the road and it improves your sight lines. Right? It's keeping them more towards the center of the road. So as I look to the left, in particular, that car is traveling further out, and I have an easier view of that car as opposed to if he was hugging the curb. So that's the other benefit of that. And I believe that's probably why they were proposing it, more for safety.
And the only question I have, they said that the loading space is partly in the right-of-way. Is that typical?
Well, you know what? I kind of consider that just a treated, you know, curbside parking, right? So if they push the curb all the way back to the other side, then you'd have a wider street and you'd have a, you know, maybe just a painted or a sign regulating, you know, truck access or truck commercial parking only. So
Explain that to me again, you lost me.
it's short story is yes, it's typical. It's done in many places, is to, you know, think about a bulb out. Right? Think about a curb extension.
That's what they're doing all over Stanford.
Yeah.
Okay. Any questions for Greg, guys? Thanks, Greg.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What's next?
Well, we did get a number of letters for the record.
Yeah.
We had emailed them previously to the commission. For example, March 28th, Ann Smalley, Ramsey Bell sent a letter. Rita Bailey sent a letter.
Sedgwick Village Homeowners Association.
Claire McGahee, Ron Pasqua, Sedgwick Village Homeowners, Caroline Haydock, Suzanne Wheel, Edward Tauberge, Rita Bailey. So there are a number of neighbor comments in the letters in the record already, which the commission's considered. So if someone's not here tonight, and they previously sent a letter, that's part of the record.
So can I open up to the,
Let's see.
would anybody in the general public like to speak to this application? Please, welcome, sir. Just state your name and address for record, if you don't mind.
Use a mask. My first name is Ed, last name is Tobergte, it's Tobergte, and I live at 20 Sedgwick Village Lane. I think it's about 700 feet from this proposed 3-story apartment building. I've heard a lot of things discussed I saw the last meeting virtually, this one I'm here at. I've seen a lot of things presented with regards to flooding. We all know that's a big issue here. From what I understand and what I can see, this getting the cars out of this parking lot has not been addressed. I just think that as a novice, if this flood water is coming in and this first floor garage is half the full of cars and it's in the middle of the night, as Jeremy had indicated, what's going to happen to this flood water? I haven't seen anything that tells me what happens in that type of a situation. Does it change the dynamic? I think it does. Does it affect Sedgwick Village? It might, especially for the people who are on both ends of Sedgwick Village. The other point, and this is really a safety issue, is the traffic. I walk my dog down there 2 times, sometimes 3 times a day. And I think there's a significant sight problem. I mean, I'm not an expert in this, but I've stood on Sedgwick and took a look over the mechanics or Old Kings, whatever they call that intersection right there, and there has to be, based on his footprint, a significant decrease in the amount of visibility to see the ongoing traffic. As you guys probably know, at least I know by being down there, I would say roughly, and I've been watching this for 2 weeks prior to this meeting, 65% roughly of the people who enter that intersection, either cars mainly, don't stop. We all know that. Especially turning right, they do not stop. I don't see where putting a crosswalk on Old Kings approaching that circle is going to make any difference for anybody to go right. I don't think they're going to stop. And I think given the added traffic that it is going to certainly happen with the post office opening soon, other spots in there that aren't open now that's going to be opening soon, I think we could create a traffic nightmare down there, and I think it would be very dangerous potentially for pedestrians especially, and also the driving public. So I thank you guys for listening to me and the opportunity to do this.
Thank you, sir. Would anybody else like to speak to this application? Welcome.
Hi,
Sure.
state your name for the record, please. Lisa Savage, Sedgwick Village Lane.
Welcome.
Thank you. First of all, thank you so much to the board. I'm so grateful for your work. I'm a little depressed, but grateful and happy so thank you for your time and individual talents and due diligence.
Thank you.
I'm not against this per se. I manage properties and I need properties to manage, so I think something is going to go in that space. With all due respect, I don't know why we're talking about something that is, from what I've seen tonight, looks like it would be a beautiful addition to Stamford or Norwalk. I'm not sure why it's right there. It seems like it just doesn't fit. It doesn't make sense. It's so congested and chaotic in that intersection. I moved to Darien because it felt safe and quiet and calm, and it's definitely changed. And I'm with Ed in terms of the post office coming and all of the other things coming. That's just great. Progress is great. I just feel like I've lived through 3 major floods there, and imagining that space with 22 apartments and parking spaces is kind of a nightmare. And where's visitor parking? I don't get visitor parking. Where are the nannies and the babysitters and the friends and the party, whatever, dinner mates parking? Like, is that an additional parking space under the thing? I don't know. Are they gonna line up on Sedgwick? I'm not sure. It's true, no one stops at the stop signs. They are pause signs, or just barely slow down but keep going signs.
And you're talking about going into Goodwife Shopping Center?
That rotary, nobody really stops anywhere there. I believe the stop sign's right there in front of Butler's Laundromat.
Okay,
And there's one too right in front of the bank.
Right, the old
And there's
ATM.
not one coming from the Historical Society that's right there, coming towards the post, right in front of Sedgwick Village. Does that make sense?
Yep.
I'm just looking at my notes to make sure I didn't forget anything. Oh, I'm curious about the flood contingency. Based on my experience of 3 pretty major floods there, and cars floating right up the driveway, how is a drainage system? I'm just going to ask out loud. You don't have to answer. But how is a drainage system even going to work if it goes into the river? The river's overflowing. It's flooding. Everything was flooded. My very, very tall welly boots weren't tall enough. Like, it was not good. And so that it's kind of thinking like, is it going to be like a fecal water car floating situation. Like, I don't even know. It's, bear with me one moment. I don't want to leave anything out if this is the very last time we get to do this.
You got plenty of time.
Thank you. Oh, fun fact. A friend recently moved into one of the beautiful buildings on Post Road, behind 1020 Post, or maybe above 1020 Post, young family, and they quickly moved out. And it was because of the noise. So I guess maybe this is a little tip for the builders and contractors, that to not skimp on insulation and thickness of building walls and floors, because it can be loud. The highway is right there, the train is right there, and it does get loud. If that matters to you. Because I think in terms of like managing places or people, the quality of life and people being happy and feeling heard is important and could make a big difference. So I think that is it. Oh, just for the record, I would love it to be like some sort of a green space, like some sort of a plaza, in addition to, or a meditation, or a community garden, or something for our mental health. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Would anybody else like to speak to this application? Looks like we're good for now. Any questions from anybody at this point? We good?
Good.
We have to close, right?
What's that?
We have to close it.
Yeah, we gotta close it.
Yep.
There's so many loose ends.
There's loose ends. There's loose ends. What are we gonna do? It's statutory. I guess we can't request it to stay open, but it is what it is. Yeah, Bob, there's loose ends, but there's nothing we can really do about it, so.
Which maybe we can,
No, we went through it, all night. We've been working on this for 3 hours, or 2.5 hours. Right? Okay, do you have anything else to add before we try to vote to close this thing?
no, I thought we covered all of the open questions that Joe Canis raised. Parking, Greg Del Rio addressed our responses to parking questions. I think we covered everything else. As far as some of the other comments, this project will have less volume in the flood zone than the existing building because the garage is open. So this will not have a negative impact on the flood elevation. It's not in a floodway, so it's not going to cause flooding to increase. If anything, it might decrease, maybe not measurable because of the size of it, but the volume of this is just not, it's less than what the volume is in the existing building. The 50-year storm system is required. When a flood comes, and no matter what you have for drainage system, floods are floods. It's different from stormwater. It's a flood, and it comes from basically the Goodwise River. Just like water from the roofs at the condos come down, hit the ground, hit the driveway, where does that go? Into the same flood water that water coming off this roof does.
Your own letter talks about the volume occupied by vehicles left in the garage during the 100-year storm, so you're assuming the garage is empty.
No.
This woman just said cars are floating, so.
Well, they may be. I've never seen a car float under the railroad bridge on the Post Road.
I have.
They get in there and they get stuck. But there's space between the floor and the bottom of the car. The frames are not all solid. So it is very, very speculative to try to figure out what that volume is. FEMA doesn't have any guidance on it. There's nothing in the regulations. And even if they float, they're in an enclosed so-called sort of enclosed space unless they find their way out the garage doors. But it's not a floodway, so you're not gonna get circulation the way you would in a floodway. So,
You can agree to disagree, that's fine.
sure, but that's the way I look at it. And I addressed that in one of my letters.
Yep, and I look at it a different way.
Well, okay. But what do you do about the cars that happen to be parked, the trucks parked in the municipal lot next door, the cars that happen to be parked in Goodwives before they could get out, the cars that are at the condo before they evacuate? I mean, you have a reverse 9/11 system here, and I've gotten those calls myself. What happens? The weather's coming, the hurricane's coming, the winter storm's coming, these are the places you can go, and all of that. I mean, there's a whole response system. This is gonna be part of it, just like everybody else in a flood zone. But that's, you work with it, that's the way it is these days. So, there you go.
The idea, I mean, you keep referencing other properties that are built, like the idea that we want to make a problem worse.
Yeah.
This
Right?
doesn't make a problem worse, though.
Sure it does. You're
Just
adding
put 22
more
families,
families.
38 cars. We
And
can
how
keep
does it
going,
make-
we're
How
fine.
does it make anything worse?
You're adding more people into a dangerous area.
That's why you have flood regulations and structural requirements. Houses are built in V zones.
I'm aware of
I've
it.
done those.
I'm aware of it.
And
But we're not trying to make a bad situation worse.
This
You
makes
keep pointing, you keep pointing to Sedgwick Village, you keep pointing to Goodwives, you know, you can point to any other site you want in the town, that's fine, but it doesn't convince me that we should be doing this and making a bad situation worse.
this makes the situation better in terms of flood.
No, it doesn't.
There's nothing in your regulations that allows you to deny an application because you think more people living in this building is gonna make a situation worse. There's nothing in the regulations about that.
There's no safety regulations?
There's
nothing-
safety.
There's nothing about safety?
But when you meet
Bob,
the
that's just
requirements,
a flat out lie.
you know how this,
That's just a
you know
flat
how
out
this
lie.
goes. When you meet the regulations, you're entitled to an approval.
I'm gonna stick with the chair.
You know.
We agree to disagree.
Okay, okay.
That's fine.
Wouldn't be the first time, I guess.
Yeah, it will be.
What do you think?
Keep going.
All right, well, that's all I really have.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions, comments?
Nope.
All right,
Nope, everyone's good?
okay. Let me shut this off.
Thank you.
And with that said, entertain a motion to close this hearing. Adam makes a motion, looking for a second. Amy makes a second. All those in favor? Hearing's closed. Great, thank you. All right, that is the end of the.
First item on our agenda.
This.
These folks are waiting,
Oh, Jesus.
but can we get her out of here? Should be a general meeting, I mean.
Yes, I don't know if we can do that. Okay,
Do you want to take the referral first?
can we
Take it out
do
of
that?
order? Yep,
What about DCA?
put that on for another night.
Is that DCA 2 seconds?
Yeah, we can
5
bang the
minutes?
DCA
Not
out.
even. But it's not urgent, it's a 2024 question.
Okay.
Amy's been here,
Yeah, so,
in light of her
yeah,
retirement.
yeah, I would put them, take them out of order.
Okay, so we're gonna change the agenda.
Yep,
Okay.
Yep.
Can I get a motion to amend the agenda? Mike made the motion, George made the second. We're gonna adjust the agenda and go into the general meeting. If you don't mind, we're gonna hit 2 quick items. Want to do the mandatory referral first? Usually we have kind of go first. The next on the agenda is gonna be mandatory referral number 4-2023, Board of Selectmen, Great Island. Report regarding leases on a number of buildings on a subject property. In our packets, we got a draft of a report for mandatory referral. It's dated today, March 23rd, May 23rd, sorry. Regarding number of leases on, regarding leases on a number of buildings on a subject property. And I just have one request on the bottom in the second paragraph.
yeah,
It says, part of the purchase price, number of structures, properties, including but not limited to a stable and apartments above, and then add the 4 words, and single-family houses.
yes.
Okay,
Several, or just
Is it
single?
plural?
single-family houses with an S.
Plural.
Yeah. Anybody else have any questions on this? We'll let George maybe go last. Adam?
My only thing was along the same line, do we want to say the stable and riding grounds? Because it's like across the street and down the hill, so you could see that somebody might rent that stable park area, you know, where they actually do the riding,
So
not
the-
necessarily the stable building itself.
So the riding rink goes with the stable?
Does it? That's what I'm asking, technically, or should we just explicitly say stable and grounds?
Stable and related facilities?
Right, because somebody might board a horse there and use the stable but not ride it there. Somebody might pull up with a horse and ride it for an event or something.
I don't know if they're actually leasing the grounds, though.
It says but it says including but not limited to, comma, a stable and apartments above, and single-family houses.
I don't know the answer to that question.
Yeah, then whatever, it's fine.
I think there's a polo field there.
Yeah.
Some paddocks, some trails that the horses typically follow.
Yeah, they're not leasing a trail.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. Mike, anything?
I'm good.
Aim?
I'm good.
George?
Okay, so I am unwilling to proceed with the stables being leased by the town at this point. I refer to section 404 of our regulations concerning R1 zones, and I've confirmed that Great Island is an R1 zone, and it provides that the following uses shall be permitted subject to approval of a special permit in accordance with section 1000. Social, cultural, and recreational uses serving a community need or convenience and not including any activity carried on primarily for profit. I have every reason to believe that the stables are a for-profit operation. I think they are specifically prohibited by our regulations. I think a lot of folks would have to have their heads in the ground and have to proceed with this. I understand that there was a point at which there was a cease and desist order issued but not enforced. I know that we've made ourselves clear, but I understand the Board of Selectmen have already gone ahead with approving the leases despite our not having submitted the mandatory referral yet. I don't think this process makes sense, and while I have nothing against these folks in the stable business, I believe it's prohibited, and so I am unwilling to sanction it. So what I would do is add to the end of the fourth paragraph where it says the use of structures is not changing from their previous historical uses. I would add, however, the current use of the stable for profit is not permitted pursuant to zoning regulations 404.d. Therefore, this report does not approve leasing the stable to a for-profit organization, and such use should cease immediately. So that will be my proposed amendment to this report if the report is submitted, or if you act on the report as written.
Okay, so the stable gets leased, right? But you don't want the stable leased at all?
I don't
Because
bel-
this whole document's got nothing to do with a special permit. We haven't issued a special permit.
Right. This is sanctioning, leasing, and permitting the continued use of the stables for a for-profit purpose. And that is not appropriate in a mandatory referral, in my view.
Okay.
So I think we need to do what we can to insist that it not continue to be used for a for-profit purpose. There are a number of things suggested here about what may happen in the future, including future mandatory referral reports for leases or substantial improvements, special permit applications, coastal site plan reviews, etc. There's at least one thing that is not listed here that could happen, and I think would permit permit the use of the stable, but that's not listed here, and the town can figure out how it wants to do that. But my view is it's just not permitted, and I don't see how this board can sanction it.
Okay, so if it's leased to somebody and they don't make a profit, does that make it right?
If they are a for-profit organization, they should not be, they should not be operating on town property.
So is that like a technical 5013C or something like that? I mean, I don't know.
If they should, if they're a nonprofit, they should be a 501c3 or similar, 501 at least. But
Okay.
that's for them to figure out, not me.
Right,
But
so-
I've heard no reference to this being to anything other than a for-profit.
But it's a
Operation.
permissible accessory use under 405.
No, it's not.
B, outdoor recreational uses, tennis courts, lighting and illumination.
Not when used for a for-profit
Doesn't say
purpose.
that.
It says it in 404.d. I just read it.
Yes, that's special permit, principal uses. This is accessory uses in 405.
Well, this is not an accessory use. This
What do you
is
mean
a,
it's not?
this is a principal use. This is a business. This is not
No, it's
accessory. This
ex-
is not a tennis court. This is not a putting green. This is a business.
It's an accessory use.
Well, I
The
disagree.
principal use is a public park.
I disagree. It would be, we're suggesting it needs a special permit.
Yeah.
Well, you don't need a special permit for the accessory use.
Yes, you do. Under
Well,
405.
sometimes you do, okay.
Okay, so
But not in this-
what's your amendment that you want?
I read it to you.
Okay, read it
So-
one more time?
Okay, so the use of the structure is not changing from their previous historical uses. However, the current use of the stable for profit is not permitted pursuant to the zoning regulation 404.d. Therefore, this report does not approve leasing the stable to a for-profit organization, and such use should cease immediately.
Right, so you're proposing that amendment?
Yes, if you
Okay.
guys all move the report as written, I would move to amend it.
Okay. Does that amendment have a second?
Right, I may not, but
You have a second?
This is where I'm gonna say, is it best to talk about it at this stage or when we get the special permit application?
Understood. I mean, right now, we're approving they can lease structures that are not limited to a stable and the apartments above and single-family houses on the property. That's what the mandatory referral is. It says nothing about special permit. So there's an amendment on the table that's looking for a second. Adam?
there isn't technically an amendment on the table yet because you haven't moved the referral.
Okay. All right. I would like to move you're correct. I would like to move this mandatory referral to be approved as amended by me. I guess, did we do that already? Does that have a second? Do you have a second for Mike? Okay, now, discussion. You had your discussion.
I will move to amend the mandatory referral as follows. Adding to the sentence that the use of the structure is not changing from their previous historical uses, I would add, however, the current use of the stable for profit is not permitted pursuant to zoning regulation 404.d. Therefore, this report does not approve leasing the stable to a for-profit organization, and such use should cease immediately.
Does that amendment have a second?
Is there a way, before we get to that we can split the difference here? Because it seems like George's, and I think it's where Amy's going, is veering into the special, from my understanding, this is just, can they or can they not lease it? And if they do want to lease it, then they still have to come to us for the special permit.
Correct.
And then we could go down George's Road and say, only for profit.
Correct.
So his might be venturing a little bit too far into it, but is there a way to sort of split the hairs and somehow stipulate that somehow say that any uses not currently, that any use that doesn't currently have a special permit must cease and desist, or must cease immediately until a special permit application has been filed? This way we say, yes, you can lease it, but you have to come to us and get the special permit. And until you do that, you can't do the stables at all.
Okay. Jeremy?
Well, it will look as if we lease it, we can't stop them from using it. So we should not
Well,
lease it to them.
the condition of the
The
lease
lease
will
hasn't
have the
been
special
approved.
permit, right?
There is
I don't
no
know.
lease on it right now.
Isn't there?
No,
Okay,
no, there's no lease on it now.
well, but it's operating.
That's the thing.
So-
That's the thing, is it's operating now. I was there. They're riding around on it.
Yeah,
It should not be.
they're working without a lease. So the town wants to be able to lease structures on the building. What's the state charter have us do?
Section 8-24 of the Connecticut General Statutes
Correct.
requires the commission to issue a report within 35 days regarding consistency with the town plan. The vote of the commission, if it's a positive report, the RTM needs a majority vote. If it's a negative report, or what they call, I think, a disapproval in the statute, then the RTM needs a 2/3 vote.
Yep.
So this report, positive or negative, will determine what kind of vote the RTM needs to get this over the hurdle.
Okay.
Pardon the pun.
So, so we're looking for a second on George's amendment.
I'm in that chicken or egg scenario. The fact that I think it makes more sense to discuss this at the special permit juncture and to dive into
But
it
the
then.
special permit is not permitted on this zone. You have to change the zone. Yes, it is.
And I've heard, I don't know what I've been presented with nothing yet.
Right.
Right. We've
So
all
I've
been
been
presented a
presented
whole
with
lot of
nothing yet.
nothing. Right.
No, but it's like, we have a cell tower in town. Are you allowed to lease the cell tower to AT&T, Verizon, and Mobile One? And they have to come to us for a special, to request of that, if we can lease that
Whole bunch of
facility.
state regulations on that.
But it's the same concept.
Not really.
Okay.
I'm telling you, I believe this regulation specifically prohibits it.
Okay.
What about?
Does it have, I'm looking for a second for the amendment.
Municipal buildings and uses of the town and other government uses primarily to serve the needs of the local community? A private stable to serve the local community?
For sure.
I don't think so.
It's for public use.
All right, well,
Does the amendment have a second?
Which one?
George's
my
amendment?
amendment.
No.
Okay. The amendment doesn't have, so the amendment doesn't carry,
Right,
okay?
all right.
So now we're back to the resolution as, or the report as drafted, which we added a sentence, we added 4 words to the end of, above the stables and single-family houses.
This, I don't think, provides that even on a special permit, that the lease must require a special permit application, or there has to be a special permit application for the lease of the stable. There was that language that we had in our first discussion that would have required a special permit approval before it was leased, or they operated it least.
So you want to amend this again to something different?
Well, I want to go back to, I'm still going to vote against it, but I
That's
think at
okay.
least you should limit it the way we originally discussed.
You're allowed to vote against it.
Yes, I know. Democracy is a great thing.
It is. Okay, so there's a motion on the table. It has a second. The amendment failed. It didn't get a second. I would call for a vote of the report as edited. All those in favor?
Can we just talk about Adam? Adam, did you want to add, you talked about adding a clarification that says,
But Adam didn't ask to edit or amend the proposal. If you want to, you're more than welcome to. Including but not limited to a stable and the apartments above, and I added, and single-family houses,
yep,
to no objection.
yeah, I just want to make sure that any language that we're saying is likely that there will be subsequent applications and commission reviews of this property. This could include future inventory for parts, use of structure is not changing. Thus, the
Special
commission
permit.
finds that the proposed leases for the existing structure on the Great Island property are fully consistent.
I'd say structures. Correct?
Yeah.
In that last
The
sentence.
commission finds that the proposed leases for the existing structures. And I guess my question is, the proposed lease for the stable, is that consistent with the town plan? And thus, the commission finds that the proposed leases, how do we, or that this is where it gets, we know we're gonna have a special permit application going in front of us.
And that's what it says in the paragraph above. This could include future mandatory referrals for leases or substantial improvements, semicolon, special permit applications, coastal site plan reviews, and/or site plan reviews. The use of the
But we don't-
structures is not.
We don't want to sanction a use that doesn't have a special permit with this letter. Like, there's a liability aspect to the town now, right, since we're the owners of it. Somebody falls,
I don't think this speaks to the special permit at
That's not
all.
what, that's not what the statute's trying to do. The statute's asking us to issue a report, the statute talks about being buy, sell, lease. It's all we're doing. Can you buy it? Can you sell it? Can you lease it? Is it consistent with the town plan? Town plan, we lease all kinds of stuff around town. We lease the Darien Boat Club.
Okay.
There's a
then why don't
special
we, why
permit
don't we,
there.
then I'd like to make an amendment to strike the whole sentence that says, "The use of the structures is not changing from their previous historical uses."
It's a statement of fact.
Why are you striking that? I mean, the house is still there. Someone's living in the house.
Because their historical uses are not valid, because they don't have a special permit right now.
The house? They live in the house?
The stable.
Okay. But way back when, Mr. Ziegler had his 12 horses in there,
Right.
right? He didn't need a special permit. Steinkraus, sorry. He had his horses in there.
But now it's a business, so it's not that anymore. Its historical use was a private resident holding his own horses. That's not the historical uses today.
The use is a horse living in the barn eating hay, walking around the property.
Are we,
But training people and doing other for-profit
Correct.
activities.
Right? So Mr. Steinkraus could have hired a trainer to live in the stables upstairs.
I guess right now, the concept of that, it's, having a lease is not inconsistent with our town plan. Who is leasing it and whether they're making a profit is the question at hand. And that we will get into furthermore at the special permit application. So I guess now that I'm hearing myself say those words,
it
I'm
should
okay
be
with it
out
as
of
written.
this, yeah.
Because in concept, a lease is not inconsistent with our town plan of conservation and development.
Right.
We will get into the meat of this at the special permit.
Right, so let's call for the vote again.
At least
Okay.
the use that is not sanctioned by the regulations would certainly not be consistent with the town plan.
But that
The
comes,
u- the
that
use
comes in the
of-
special permit part of it, not this part of it.
Yeah, this is where,
I think
I get into, that gets into, they're riding horses, they're training people, they're operating a stable. That is not inconsistent with our town plan. Whether they're doing it for a for-profit organization or not is the wrinkle, and that is, we don't know that yet, and we'll know that when we get these special permit applications. So that's kind of how I'm talking my way through what we're looking at in front of us right now.
Right, the town could hire the lady that's running it. Her name's like Tracy something. You can hire her and make her an employee of the town.
Yep.
There's no lease. She's now a town employee. The guy's cutting the grass.
We're going to have transition
Right.
and growing pains with the
Right, so let's
property.
stay where we are.
Yeah.
I called for a vote, or a vote was called for. All those in favor of the mandatory referral as written, with the amendment saying, and single-family houses.
And the structure plural on the final line. Proposed leases for existing structures on Great Island.
Got it? Yep. All those in favor?
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4. All those opposed? 1. There's no abstentions, okay? Motion passes 4-1. All right, you can issue this report as edited. All right, next item. Amy Bell is a wonderful woman. She's been here all night. I thought she retired, but I guess she's still killing us. Doing it again, all right.
After this meeting.
Next item on the general meeting is amendment for special permit application number 47D, Darien Community Association, the DCA, 274 Middlesex Road, request for 5 front lawn events in 2024 and 2025. We've seen this document or request from the DCA since 2020 when COVID hit. We extended, and I think it's always for a year. It looks like now Ms. Bell I can't find my piece of paper, I lost it again. Thank you. Desire for outdoor gatherings, are they adding any more? It's the same as last time, Jeremy? It's a general meeting item.
That's, my belief is same as last time.
Okay. There's really no discussions, no public thing. Is anybody against this? Okay, can we take a vote? All those in favor of passing, and giving the DCA that? 5-0. Any opposed? Nothing? Fantastic. Ms. Bell and the DCA get their 5 events for the next year. Thank you. All right, sorry, everybody, I appreciate your patience. We're gonna go back to the, public hearing. Can we have a vote, we need a vote to go back to the public hearing?
Yep.
All right. All right, the next item on the agenda is coastal site plan review number 376, land filling regrading application number 551, RRE Holdings LLC, 244 Long Neck Point Road. Proposal to construct a 20 by 50 in-ground pool on the southern portion of the site and perform related site development activities within a regulated area, including the regrading of the property, installation of stormwater management, and connecting the main residence and cabin on the property to the sanitary sewer line in Long Neck Point Road. The 1.13 plus or minus acre subject property is located on the west side of Long Neck Point Road, approximately 0.44 miles south of its intersection with Pear Tree Point Road, and is shown on Assessor's map number 61 as lot number 13-A in the R1 residential zone. Gentlemen, what do we got?
This project was designed in conformance with section 810 and 850 of the regulations under coastal site plan review and land filling regrading. The application was referred out to the health department. Mr. Knopf, the director of health, submitted comments on May 10th. He had specific comments relative to the crushing of the septic system on the site, as you may have noted from his correspondence in your packets. The proposed pool would be going in the location of the existing septic system, and he had concerns regarding the removal of that crushed system, which the applicant will address this evening. The application was also referred out to Joe Canis of Ty and Bond. He submitted comments for the record dated May 17th, and was also referred out to Connecticut Deep. We received comments from them on May 12th. The applicant's representative, Jim Kasutis, is here this evening to present the application and answer any questions you may have.
Jim, welcome.
Good evening.
Sorry you had to wait so long.
I didn't think I was going to get a chance.
We'll give you a shot.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
You want to rip through it really quick? It sounds like it's a pool in a flood
Yes,
zone or near a
it's an
flood zone?
in-ground pool. It's an existing residence. So the residence is here. There's the main driveway that comes in to the north. And then there's a secondary driveway that comes from the south, and it connects into the existing primary. That driveway will be intercepted by the new pool, so that new driveway will be removed. That's actually a question that Ty and Bond had, what's gonna happen to that driveway, so that entire leg of the driveway will be removed, and whatever doesn't become part of the pool area will be turned into lawn. The other question that they had was, what was the second question? If there's gonna be a patio associated with the pool?
Yeah.
And that answer is, no, there will not be, because there's an existing patio off the residence in this area. Regarding the health director's letter of excavating the existing leaching fields,
Yeah.
there's, the concern, I guess, there is not to bring up any of the liquid, the effluent, when the system is being done, right? So, if we look at the pool, half of the pool is outside the septic area, the other half would be part of it, within the leaching fields. So, my proposal is then the cleanest process here would be to excavate the clean area first, build a berm around where the fill package is gonna end up, and then whatever contaminated material is excavated from the septic fields being backfilled between that berm and the pool. So basically taking it out of the ground, putting it back into the ground. 'Cause that's what.
You're not gonna take it off site?
No, the director specifically says in here, so that he's worried about possible sewage runoff and contaminated soil running into Long Island Sound. stone and pipe from the old system will need to be contained and buried on site. It's already underground, and we're gonna be putting it back into the ground. If the need be that we need to remove stone and pipe and haul it off the property, we could do that as well.
Wow, that's above my pay grade.
Is that soil sufficient for I guess maybe, Chair Canis can.
Pool to sit on?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what you.
So what's the specific question?
Is this soil with effluent in it suitable for backfilling a pool?
Well, we did a test pit out here for drainage purposes.
Yep.
And what we found was sandy loam and sand and gravel below that. So there's no real restrictive layer of this effluent not running through. So whatever material comes out will be discolored from the years of use of effluent running through it. But other than that, I don't anticipate sludge or liquid or anything like that being excavated out of the hole. It's just discolored soil that will remain in place.
Is there a period of time they're not currently hooked up to the sewer, correct?
That is correct.
Is there a period of time by which he would be more comfortable to say, you hook up to the sewer, those leaching fields are effectively not in use for X amount of time before you then go digging it up?
So you're saying like 6 months?
Is there
Do they clean them?
Let it leach out.
does it make it less likely to become, at risk of, not being able to be managed?
Well, I understand. My understanding is that the residence has been vacant for at least 6 months now. If there is any use, there is a,
Minimal.
what is it labeled as?
Or is there, I know I've done many septic, inspections in my day. Not me personally, I've witnessed them as a real estate agent. I've witnessed them, I don't do them myself.
Anthony?
But yes, in an example where it's been a vacant house and they put their poles in the leaching fields and they're like, these are dry as a bone. I can't give you an opinion because the house hasn't been in use for X amount of months.
Right.
So is there a level that maybe David would be comfortable with an opinion from Palladino or pick your septic provider that says,
The leaching fields are
the
dormant.
leaching fields are relatively dormant?
Sure, I recommend that just, if you want to place this as a condition of approval, that we are involved as engineers during excavation of the project.
Yeah.
So when they go in with a bucket, and we can invite the health department out there as well to evaluate it before.
Did you know David's
I mean, when I spoke to David today, he said, wouldn't it just be easier to move the pool? Like either tilt it 90 degrees or put it somewhere else in the property. I said, well, I can certainly mention that.
Yeah.
Or leave the hearing open a week or two and let Jim work with David on its solution.
Yeah.
Versus making a conditional approval.
Yeah. I mean, I could certainly appreciate the plan to get it beyond the flood zone, or the coastal area setback zone.
Yes.
Yeah, I appreciate that intent, is to, keep it outside of that space.
Yeah, everything up here is high and dry, and like I said, any material in there naturally drains very fast.
But your point, Jeremy, is if they just take it and tilt it,
Well, there's also a very mature, nice tree in this area. And if we take the pool and start rotating it this way, we may be getting too close to that root mass.
But am I in the minority where I would, if the thing's dormant, right? It's, for argument's sake, you had 6 months to 6 months. It's dormant. It hasn't leached in a year. Wouldn't you still want to take the stuff and take it off site and send it to Pennsylvania or West Virginia or wherever they send it? That's where they send it.
I think that's specifically what the health director is saying, is that he does not want it taken off the site.
But he said that the tank,
No.
not the leaching.
No,
No,
the
he's
tank.
talking about leaching fields.
Oh, you said the soil, I'm sorry.
Soil.
All right, I missed that.
I like Jeremy's idea about potentially leaving the hearing open and letting them work out some more of those
Jim,
details.
since you got the comments, your coworker got the comments, were you able to reach out to David?
I had a brief conversation with David. We were out on the site and we didn't specifically talk about this project, but when I said, David, what's behind your thinking in this letter? His response was, well, you just move the pool. So we haven't really gotten into it for specifics. I didn't think that it's a big deal, only because there's no permit required to go in and dig where the leaching fields are and remove them from where they are now. It just happens that we are in front of you, and there's a pool going in, and then the Director of Health has comments on, okay, what's the best way of approaching it if you're gonna remove these fields? So he feels, and I agree, that they should stay in ground, just like they would exist for the next 50 or 100 years. If the pool doesn't go in, we address it the same way. It's just a matter of building a berm. And my thinking is, by building a berm, we don't have to rely on silt fences well, we are gonna put a silt fence for the sediment, but anything running off the site, just because everything's gonna be contained within that area, so.
But the reality is, any recommendation that you're gonna make on staging that and managing that disposal or burying that, we'd wanna hear from David on what his thoughts are. So that's, in my mind, I'd wanna hear his opinion.
Yeah.
On what you're proposing, so it makes sense that you guys have a detailed conversation and.
Do you have I'm sorry.
That's all.
Do you have a timing issue?
It's a pool and it's summer.
You're asking me personally? I do not. I'm sure they want to start digging. I could iron this out with David in the next week, if that's what you're asking.
Yeah.
Yes, we can definitely iron this out in the next couple of days.
Okay. Yeah, all right.
Jim, just real quick, it is our understanding from speaking with Avon over the past several weeks that there could potentially be some upcoming house additions and improvements to sort of the cabin down by the water, which would require their own coastal site plan review. Are you aware of whether that's going to happen in the very near future? Are we looking a year out for that? Any insight into that?
I've been listening, I've been hearing something about that for the last probably 5 or 6 months. I don't have anything solid. I don't anticipate anything coming in front of you, let's say in a month or two. I know that there are plans, but I can't speak to the timing of things.
Okay.
Yeah, because we usually look at the whole package versus.
I would have liked to present it all at once as well, but like I said, I've been hearing about it, but I don't have a clear picture.
Okay, so can we extend this hearing for?
We can continue it to 2 weeks from today, June 6th.
That's okay by you?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Okay.
Jeremy, one question. Can we put as in the conditions, the sequence of events, that they must hook up to the town sewer first before they do this? I don't know that we've done something where we've sequenced it, where we're, as a condition of approval, just to ensure that the leaching field stays dormant.
Well,
You gotta hook up to the town sewer before you disconnect the sewer.
Well, I mean, if the
Disconnect the
house is not
septic
being
tank.
used.
You can disconnect it.
It's gonna be part of the permitting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get
Yeah,
it.
right now, the house is under renovation, correct, Jim?
Yes, yes.
No one's living there today. In
As
the
far as I know,
structure.
yes, correct. Nobody's living in the main house.
And no one's flushing toilets. Okay. If it doesn't have a C of O, it doesn't have a C of O. Okay, so we're gonna extend the hearing for 2 weeks.
All right.
All right, thank you. Next item on the agenda. Flood damage prevention application number 438, land filling regrading application number 546, Joshua and Shari Soloway at 9 Crane Road. Proposes to construct a new 4-bedroom, single-family dwelling, construction of a new driveway, retaining walls, and terrace and porch area, and perform related site development activities within a regulated area, including regrading of the property and installation of stormwater management. The 1.2 plus or minus acres subject property is located on the west side of Crane Road, approximately 630 feet east-south of its intersection with Pear Tree Point Road, and is shown as an assessor's map number 60 as lot 32 in the R1 zone. Wow, you're familiar.
Well, good evening again. Jim Cassidy with Cassidy's Engineering, here to present to you 9 Crane Road, the development of 9 Crane Road. We'll go through it quickly, I guess. So,
Just to confirm, no pool, right?
no pool.
Some of the narratives had a pool on it.
Yes, yes.
Gleason's letter.
None of this comes out
We'll get to that.
as we see it now, the first time around, so there were some modifications to the layout. So existing residence, it's a little light, a little hard to see, but it's attached in here with an existing driveway on Crane Road. So the proposal here is to remove that residence, which doesn't currently comply with FEMA regulations, and to replace with a fully code-compliant residence. So, with that said, the slab elevation of the proposed residence will be set to 14, and the first floor at 18. The 100-year base flood elevation in this location is 14. So everything will be above the base flood elevation, again, complying to FEMA regulations. As a side note, we have applied to FEMA to remove the residence and a portion of the property from the flood hazard area.
You did a lawnmower?
We did a conditional, it hasn't been approved yet, but we filed it, just for insurance purposes.
Right.
The house as is proposed complies.
But you're putting the house at 18 where the regulations really should be 15, right? So you're going, are we supposed to do 1 foot above the
Correct.
base? Which is 15 and you're going 3 feet higher than that?
Yes,
Okay.
correct. And the slab, the slab of the crawl space is at 14, so technically, it can't really get flooded.
I saw that.
So, I guess the main discussion here is the filling that we're doing on the property and how we propose not to impact the neighboring properties. I believe we have some neighbors here tonight. They can express their concerns, and we can have a discussion, I guess. But, so, the idea here is that the majority of the front, let's orient ourselves here. So up is north, so the northeast section of the property, part of the driveway in that section of the property drains towards Crane Road. Is that clear? You guys can see? Jeremy, can this pick me up when I'm speaking that way?
Yeah,
or-
she's a rock star.
It's up to the street, so.
So, yes, so this section of the property here drains towards Crane Road. The remainder of the property comes down through a swale, through the back, here, and drains towards what is 15 Crane Road, under current conditions. The existing residents or the driveway don't have any drainage associated with them, and under the Darien drainage regulations for an existing conditions analysis, we have to pretend that this entire property is vacant. There's no
Fresh meadow.
fresh
Yep.
manner. That was an easy approach, I guess. I could have just said fresh manner.
That's all right.
All right, so that's a conservative approach to our analysis. Originally, because the property is in the flood zone, we have done an analysis based on the water quality volume, which is the first inch of runoff off the impervious surfaces.
Yep.
Based on the regulations, we could have done that. In the back of our minds, we kept in mind that we could go back and redesign it based on the 2 through 50 storms designs, which Ty and Bond came back and actually addressed the fact that because the majority of the property drains through another property, which is 15 Crane Road, they requested that we do that analysis. And that analysis was done, well, I believe Thursday we got the comments, Friday town hall is closed, we got the comments back on Monday. The same day, Ty and Bond came back with a positive report of how we meet those requirements. So we're not increased the runoff from our property based on this development to the neighbors on 15 Crane or towards the west in the back or in any direction. And in the report, based on our analysis from the 2 through the 50-year storm events, we've decreased storms, the runoff from our property by 6, 27, so from 6% to 23% based on the storm that we were analyzing. There's a drop-off in the back of the existing house, and it creates somewhat of a low point. I want to call it a bowl, but it's not really. It only holds 4 or 5 inches of water before it spills over into number 15 Crane. And that was basically what we tried to analyze and show that we're not increasing runoff through that area, because we're filling that area in, but what we're doing is basically we're bringing the low plateau up and then grading back down to meet grade. So in the original plan, the drop-off was in this section of the property. Now we're bringing the plateau up and we're pushing the drop-off in this section of the property. Well, we located a rain garden with drainage below it, where the green is shown in here, at the bottom of that drop-off. So any lawn that comes off this area is intercepted, in addition to the patio, the house, and the entire driveway into that area. That's how we were able to not increase runoff to our neighbors.
Is that the max size of the rain garden? Can you make it longer, east and west?
Extend it further?
Yeah.
We could extend it a little further.
Okay, because on the left-hand side, you got the lines going around it. I mean, it makes sense to protect the people in the south. It makes sense to make that thing as long as humanly possible.
So to the east, basically.
I mean, I would do east and west.
Well, this side here converges towards the rain garden.
Oh, it does? Okay.
These are, the contours are perpendicular to the rain garden in that area.
Yeah, I'm looking at it.
You gotta look on it.
Oh, just on the bottom you're looking at?
You gotta rotate it. No, a different one.
Oh, I got it, 13, 12, 10,
Yeah,
9, 8, so, yeah, I got you.
Slopes
Okay,
down
cool.
into it.
So it's going down? Yeah, got it.
Well, we could extend it the other way, 10, 20 feet or so, just to cover more of that lawn coming onto the neighborhood.
That'd be great.
We could do that.
Thank you.
So we spoke about, so we had comments, we received positive comments back from Time Bond. And I just want to point out, speaking about that rain garden and how we're protecting the neighbors, that item G, is it G? Item G of the general comments, this is after the original submission and before we amended the drainage report to cover the 2 through the 50 storm. He mentions in his comments how, although we do meet the regulations of collecting the water quality volume, so the statement, our concern is that since the site is adding impervious cover, the amount of runoff and volume directed towards 15 Crane Road will increase, adversely impacting that property. Provide computations demonstrating no adverse impact to the property to the south. And after we submitted our updated report, the comment reads, requested computations have been provided and demonstrate that there will be no adverse impact on adjoining properties.
That's the goal.
That's
We don't want to flood out 15 or 16 or 17 or 18.
That's the goal. And then there was a condition, what he states is a potential condition of approval is that we provided a floodplain note of how to handle the stockpile area and the staging areas during flood event.
Construction.
But he wanted us to expand a little more, so it reads, but additional information such as how weather reports will be monitored and who is responsible for implementing the contingency plan should also be included. So that, we have no issue with adding that as a condition of approval and amending our note. Our note is in the upper left corner here. We just have to expand that and assign somebody responsible for those
And that's the new plans we got on the 22nd. This one I'm staring at is May 4th, and the new ones you got are May 22nd.
That is correct.
And Joe Canis saw these ones already?
Yes,
Joe's giving me a heads up, all right.
yes.
As long as Joe signs off on it, we're gonna be good.
Okay.
Go ahead, I'm sorry. Amy.
Yeah, can I ask a question? Can you explain the rationale as to why the house base was set at 18 rather than, why is it 4 feet more than is required? Because the land goes off and, the neighbor's immediately next door, okay, I get 4, but, 18 feet is a lot higher than 14.
Well,
Particularly when the grade of the neighbor down below is, can you talk to that a little bit?
sure. It should have been, it would have been 15, because it's base flood elevation plus 1.
Yeah.
But we wanted to have a crawl space below the first floor, and we're that close to the elevations that if we would have raised a couple more feet, we could have had the crawl space not flood, instead of sinking the crawl space another 2 or 3 feet and installing flood vents to it. The other reason that I see is that on the north side of the property, those existing grades are about 15.5. So we're kind of taking the plateau from there and kind of extending it through the property.
It just,
The
I was
patio.
just driving down the street today and I just was envisioning what's there now and the change of what's here. I just think it's gonna be high. The guy next door, it's gonna be high.
Yeah, on your zoning survey, you gave us a text box,
Mm-hmm,
where these guys did, was it Seymour?
yes.
Proposed is all blank. How tall is this thing?
This is gonna be high.
Do you have those numbers, Steve? No, the height of the building.
Highest red is
Well, it meets the regulations, it's under 30.
So you gotta go to, if you're the architect, you gotta come up.
Yeah.
We like text boxes filled in.
Steve Jones, the architect, and I appreciate that question. We've been asked that question about why, the floor space isn't at, let's say, 16 feet. So 15 feet is the minimum. Then we have, by code, we have to have a crawl space that's at least 1.5 feet. And then we have girders, and we have 2 feet with the girders and the joists. And you don't want the joist and the girder in the water. So by the time you add those all together and we get back down to 14 feet, it pushes the house up to almost 18 feet. So, the first floor is to allow for that crawl space. And to keep we also have to run HVAC under the joist. So we're trying to keep all of the equipment out of the flood area. So we had to come down 1.5 feet below the joist and the girder. So that resulted in the house being higher. The house is so low now that really the water line is right at the floorboards.
Yeah, no, I know that. I definitely know that what's there is not ideal.
Oh, no. Special guy. Oh, that's the new one you just got today?
No, this is the one I brought with me. It's filled in
From May
here,
4th.
but 2 over is not filled in.
Well, what's the answer to the question anyway?
So the highest ridge is 51.4 elevation. The lowest is 16.4 elevation, so whatever the difference there is.
You said 27 feet, Steve?
Yeah, so it's well under the, limit, so. In fact, the house, technically could be higher, but we kept it as low as we could.
And I appreciate the step-down nature where the neighbor who's downhill, it's effectively a single story at their edge, correct?
Yes.
I mean, the massing of this is predominantly in the middle, and the wings on the side seem to be, stepped
Yeah,
down.
it steps down,
Yeah.
sort of like
Yeah.
a mountain range.
Yep.
And it's certainly not as high as the houses across the street.
Yep, understood, yep. Okay,
So according to our regulations, how tall is this thing? Says midpoint elevation 43.9, and then building height 27.5. Is that what you read?
I just read it off the text box.
I did not.
Is that right?
I'm sorry?
27.5, is that right?
It sounds about right.
Yeah.
For that house looks to be about 27 units.
Yeah, the formal building height is 27 and a half feet.
27 and a half, yes.
Okay.
We can certainly double check it, but based on the sketches I've seen, seems correct.
Yep, that sounds right. Okay, all right.
What else?
One last comment just for the record. Because we were contacted by our neighbor to the northwest, Jennifer Arrington at 116 Pear Tree. And the concern there was that because we're bringing the grade up around the house, so our neighbor resides in this corner here. And we can see that, like I mentioned before, under existing conditions, there's an actual swale that comes through onto 15th Train from our property, but these properties drain this way as well. So with us raising these grades in here, the concern was that we're raising them too high, pushing the water onto these guys' properties. But if you can see a little closer, there's some arrows here and here, and the contours kind of bow in a way where there's going to be a swale that comes around the back and through the back side of the property, maintaining that existing flow pattern and not pushing additional water towards these neighbors here. And just
Okay, we got a letter from that 116 neighbors, council,
yes.
asking to extend a hearing, but you said you spoke to the neighbor?
We spoke to them on 3 separate occasions. The last one was yesterday, right after we received this letter.
The 19th letter?
That is correct. And I
Yeah,
guess
you were copied that, I'm sorry. Yep.
it was 19th, right. Town hall was closed on Friday, on the 19th, so.
You're open plenty of hours. 10-hour days.
I'm just trying to make the point that
I
we
can
got
tell
it
you
on
John
Monday,
was
not on
working on
Friday,
Friday.
but yes, absolutely, they are open plenty.
They do their-
We find them when we need them, yes.
Yeah.
So I don't want to expand on exactly what this letter means, but I know that speaking to them, they feel comfortable about what we've done, and we pointed out the swale, and we pointed out the regrading. I'm not exactly sure where this letter stands, if they're still looking to.
They might be here in the
continue.
audience. I don't
They're
know.
most likely here, yes.
I
I
did
never met in
speak-
person, so I don't know faces.
Okay.
I did speak to Wilder Gleason this afternoon, and he submitted the letter to us today and asked for the extension to allow an engineer hired by them. From what we understand, that would be Craig Flaherty, that
Totally got
would,
it. Okay.
he would
Let's hear-
review the plans and provide his feedback to the
Why don't we
commission.
continue? Why don't we just continue?
Right.
It's already 11 o'clock.
I know. Okay.
Yeah,
Do we want to hear Joe Kennis on this one, or bring him back next time?
we're gonna continue it.
It sounds like we're going to ask to continue this.
I guess the question is for how long?
Well,
I only asked that only because the notices went out about 2.5 weeks ago, or more, but the letters were probably received 2.5 weeks ago from the neighbors. So there were about 2.5 weeks to do somewhat of due diligence.
We would likely continue this to June 6th as well.
The same day he's coming back to
Yes,
the other one. You're coming here anyway, dude.
2 weeks is, we could do 2 weeks.
Okay. Okay. Let me just hear from one person in the audience. Do you want to hear from Joe Kennis tonight or not?
No.
All right, we'll skip Kennis. I'm
He's
going
on the
to-
phone,
He's good. Would anybody in the audience like to speak to this application, please?
Yeah, I would.
Do you have to come to the microphone, just state your name and address and whatnot? You've waited from 7 o'clock.
I
I am Jennifer Arrington.
Yeah, okay.
And that's not how we left our conversation, but it's so nice to hear your take on it. The way I left it was that we had said that we were attempting to engage an engineer and that we were hoping to speak to him that day, and we got the letter of engagement this afternoon.
Okay, so just for the record, you're Jennifer Arrington.
At 116 Pear Tree Point Road.
Fantastic, thank you. Okay.
Our only concern is that currently the drainage report takes into account the surface water runoff from impervious surfaces, which is fine, that's what most do when you're developing, but there is current drainage issues on that land from the land itself. I know they say it doesn't currently take, like I have photos from when it rained a few days ago of the water and where it pools right on the boundary with 15 Crane. And so what we're worried about is that the addition of the swale, which is directing water towards the rain garden as well, that runoff hasn't been taken into account along with all of the runoff that's going to come from the impervious surfaces. So we want to know whether or not that rain garden can handle that additional runoff. And then the swale is around the back of the house. Is it on this plan? It's not on all of them, the swale. So the new one, but in the drainage report, the new revised drainage report that was submitted on the 22nd,
Great.
there are two new maps, page 4 and page 5, that have an additional arrow that goes from our property down this side too, saying that the natural path of drainage, so not only are they going to have the swale around the back, coming from the right down, the natural path of drainage is coming this way as well. So we just wanted to know if all of that was taken into account. And then the fact too that there isn't a pool in the application now, but the proposed pool equipment enclosure is still on the building site.
Okay.
So they removed the pool, but not the pool equipment enclosure, which leads us to believe that there will be a pool. And I've also heard rumors that we were told that they were just going to do that later on. So it was kind of like what you said before in an earlier submission, just having the whole plan at once. So it's not stepped because they know they can get the steps through, and then but all together maybe it wouldn't have gone through. And as we said, we know that there's going to be rebuilding on this site. Obviously the house is very outdated and all of that. We just want to make sure that there's no adverse effects to the neighbors that don't have to happen. If they can be taken into consideration at the time of building, if we could just take them into consideration at that time in order to prevent any possible property damage or. So that was, so we were just hoping that we could get a continuance. We were hoping till the end of June because the engineers, you can engage an engineer, but obviously they have tons of projects going on at the time, and we hope to use Craig Flaherty because we heard that as a town, he'd been used by the town before, and I guess you guys know, I guess about his skill set and what he does.
He's pretty quick.
Okay, that's good to know. We're not sure about, this is all new to us, so honestly, we were just coming hoping, yes, we did get the letters, but we actually got 3 letters in one envelope. 2 dated April 20th and 1 dated May 3rd, all came in one envelope together.
Okay.
So, which is fine, that's what the regulations, but it still is a short period of time to kind of, get your thoughts, try to see what the plans are. I went to the town hall, I saw the plans because I didn't know that you can get them online because the letter said you had to go to the town hall and then try to figure that out. Get an attorney, get them to come over, and then try to get the engineer. I'm sorry we weren't quicker. We don't want to slow.
That's okay.
We know that people have a timeline and a budget. And I know this is not a great first impression of a neighbor, and I am sorry about that, but we just hope that if anyone builds next to you later on, that they would take those considerations, of your new home as well, that you had just built, so.
Yeah, just so for your comfort, we also hired a town engineer too.
I know, I read
It was Joe
his
Canis,
report.
he's here. And then as part of our discussion tonight, this rain garden on the bottom that you're seeing, and
Yeah,
then
the
it
fact
just
that
got
they
extended 10
expand,
feet.
Which is great to see that.
Please.
We just really wanted to, and as we said, we're not saying that we were going to object to it. We just wanted a little time to have the engineer just review it and then give us the peace of mind to say, yes, this is this will be fine, the flow pattern, that it can handle the water that's currently running off the ground as well, just because it is 904 cubic yards of fill that are being brought into the property.
Yep.
And it says also it's going to be it'll minimally extend 25 feet of any proposed structures from the house. So it's the land that's being extended to, not just, so they take into consideration the impervious surfaces, not, so that's all. I'm
Yep.
so sorry.
No, it's fine.
Again, as I said, it was a really bad introduction to the neighborhood.
think we're inclined to continue anyway, so.
Yeah, we're gonna continue anyway.
You'll get your shot.
You're gonna have your time, and we're gonna have, he's an engineer, he's gonna look at it, the guy in the back row is an engineer, he's gonna look at it.
Okay, that's-
And you got a third engineer.
Okay, if that's okay, that's all, we just wanted to, just a little
You got
extra
it.
time. Okay.
Thank you. And Craig's fine with 2 weeks, trust me.
It also does say on this, top of pool coping, right in the legend.
They're gonna have to modify it.
So there's some
plans,
stuff that needs to be
coordinate the
removed.
plans. But the reason we're doing June 6th is because the June 13th and the June 27th meetings have the potential to be this long, so we don't want to make these people wait 4 hours again. I'd rather put them on an agenda early on. where
That's
we-
fine. All right, so we're gonna extend this hearing until June 6th. You cool?
And it'll be 8 PM, or 7:30 PM in this room.
In this room.
No further notice. This is the notice of that continuation.
Thank you. And anybody else, I apologize, have to come back again, speak next time. You cool with that?
Yes, June
All right,
6th.
so this is extended. All right, there's other items on the general meeting. We're gonna punt all that stuff to
Next week.
next time, whatever next time, okay? With that said, Chair's report, none of those. Public hearing, we've talked about that.
Special May 30th?
May 30th, special meeting. What's today's date? Yeah, that's next
23rd.
week. Okay? Motion to adjourn. Mike makes a motion.
I want to
George
stay.
makes a second.
I'm not voting for this one.
All in favor? Meeting's adjourned. Thank you, TV 79. Thank you, Karen.